Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother, Dagan Moriarty. This is our 40th episode, Dag, although I think you missed one. So I think this is your 39th episode.
Oh, no black balloons for me yet.
No, indeed, not over the hill. I was just
the old Dagster.
I was just thinking, what is Over the Hill is 50, right?
No, Over the Hill is 40.
It was 40.
Off.
It was 40 though, wasn't it? Because I feel.
Oh, wait.
I was introduced to the term Over the Hill at our neighbor, the Kochers. One of them turned 40 or something, and someone gave them a card, and I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" Like, I still, for like years, I didn't know like Over the Hill, and then as I started to realize it, I'm like, that would be Over the Hill 50 or 100 years ago, but now I feel like 50 is the new 40. You know, you'll tell us soon enough because you're going to turn 50 in December.
There's no difference. Turning 40 is like the end of it. I remember when my best friend, I was pretty little, and one of my best friends' dad turned 40, and it was the whole thing, party, barbecue in the backyard, black balloons that said Over the Hill in gold writing, that whole thing. And I was probably like 10 years old at the time. And I remember feeling like those people were so old, but I was just thinking about this yesterday on my walk, right? The older you get, and let's go by increments of decades, right? You're just looking for people that are older than you in your vicinity just to comfort yourself. Like, I'm looking for people that are older. So I'm like, oh, look at that 70-year-old. I don't feel so bad type of thing. The older you get, there's less and less people. Now I'm looking at people with walkers and canes and rolling around in Rascals and the Kmart and stuff like that. And those are the only people that make me feel better. I'm that old, right? So, but I don't think, and this is not to trouble you in any way, Kyle, but I don't think there's much difference between 40 and 50, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not troubled by it.
I mean, there is.
There is literally, but I think that, I don't know. I'm just kind of accepted. I feel like it's in the last few years, something has snapped in my mind positively where I just seem to understand things better and am framing things in my life differently as I get older, where I'm just totally not worried about a bunch of things or like what people think or I don't know.
Wisdom is kicking in, man.
That's an advantage. Although Micah and I have been watching, and Micah, welcome to the show, our coordinator, co-host of Punching Up. We've been watching at night old episodes of Price is Right. And we watch them. We try to circulate between the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And so there's a million episodes on YouTube, and people just it'll be like just Price is Right, April 15th, 1992. And we watch that with all of the commercials, and we've really been enjoying it. And what we can't help but remark is when we see older people, we're like, oh, that person's dead. Or when there's like a show from 1993 and the guy's like barely alive at the putting his bets in or whatever. And then I'm like, that guy died probably like 2 years.
He didn't make it to
94. 2 years later. But by the way, dude, I meant to send you this thing before we started. I've always been a huge fan of Rod Roddy. And
oh yeah.
Micah wasn't familiar with Rod Roddy, and I was telling her that my GameFAQs alternate name for many years was Rod Roddy. That was like my alternate account. And I've come to love, as we've watched, I've come to like re-ingratiate myself in the rhythms of Price is Right. And after the showcase showdown, after the first wheel spin and they do the second half of the show, they'll do one person, they'll go to commercial, then they'll come back, and Bob often talks to Rod. And I've been making Micah laugh, and I've been just eating it up because it'll be like, he wears his sequin jackets and all that, and he'll be like, so Rod, and then there'll just be a shot of Rod Roddy, like the only shot you'll see in the entire, and he'd be like, yes, Bob, and like you're like all that, dude. It's so funny. I want to just make his face is so comical. What a showman Rod Roddy was. R.I.P. Rod Roddy.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, the voice, but I wonder if that was like a contractual thing once the show got big enough. Like, I need a little FaceTime. Give Rod a little FaceTime, at least a little like 10-second snippet per episode or something.
And it's also fun watching it through the lens of Bob Barker, because I was telling Micah, Bob Barker's just amazing, just absolutely amazing at vamping and doesn't flub, and it's really, really great. But I was like, I can't help but look at it through the lens of all, Barker's beauties. And later on, all of these things came out about him with him. Like he was fucking these chicks and like doing all sorts of things.
Oh, I didn't know about
and like got, I think, sued by a couple of them. And then later on, I think in the late 90s and early 2000s, like came to hate these women. It was because it was the same women for many years. And then they started just circulating people because he was like, fuck these chicks. Like, but there's like all of this weird stuff going on behind him. So I'm watching it being like, I wonder if like this chick was riding Bob like a horse after
his Rod Roddy.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Micah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I gotta say, one of my favorite parts of watching these old episodes has been the commercials. Something I learned, like this actually shocked me. The original shredded wheat. I didn't know they were so huge, all right? I was a child, like shredded mini wheats, all right? I didn't know why they were mini wheats, it made whatever. I never saw the original shredded wheats that were like the size of a whole cereal bowl. And we watched that commercial, and I was like, is this like an artist rendition of it? And then they show the guy eating it, and I'm like, are you telling me they were that big? And Colin's like, yeah. I mean, I was just like, I was shocked.
Right. I hadn't thought of that in years, and I think that the idea was that you were supposed to like crunch it into your milk, but
right,
it was like
they
this
show
huge,
the guy doing it.
Yeah, it was like this huge bar, and I don't think they even make them like that anymore.
No,
really?
Never in my life had I ever seen these giant shredded wheats, because the plain shredded wheat is also the miniature size now. But it honestly shocked me. And they're 80 calories each. So you could like count them out and be like, I'll have 2 of them. But I just was like, literally, I thought it was a joke that they were so huge. And it just was like, that was honestly such a thing of like, I can't believe this was a real idea someone had. Like, let's make this brick of a cereal and you just deal with it. Like that, I don't know. Shredded mini wheats, fantastic.
Cereal. Yeah,
it was bizarre. It was bizarre. That commercial haunts me.
Yeah, it's cool to see stuff for all the old commercials for all, especially all 3 eras, like just seeing the types of commercials and the styles of commercials. And Mike and I have been really tuned into the sloganeering and the music that they make, like the custom music. And I was saying, like, you could just tell that there was a time, it was probably the late 90s, early 2000s, where they're like, fuck this, we're doing licensed music because these songs are so bad. They're writing jingles for all this nonsense. It reminds me of, Joey and Jesse in Full House in the basement writing their fucking jingles for their shitty little music company that they were doing. Full House reference. Ben Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I was thinking about Dagan turning 50, going over the hill for the second time. And I was thinking about, I had this teacher when I was in 4th grade. Her name was Mrs. Milligan, and I think she had a twin. And at one point there was she was just so old, dude, like so old. And at one point in the newspaper, there was an article, like somebody had paid to have the advertisement or whatever. And it was a birthday celebration for her and her twin sister. And it said, Lordy, Lordy, look who's 40, or, some cliche like that. And I was like, oh my, I cannot believe she is 40. She is ancient. And now that I'm like almost 36, I'm like, she's pretty young. That's pretty good. I'm sure there's a pretty good time in her life. I'm not so sure Mrs. Milligan was as ancient as I once thought she was. But it just seemed so far away to me when I was in like 4th grade. What would that be, like 8 or 9, something like that?
Yeah.
Insane. It's weird how that perspective changes. Like, 40. She's having the time of her life. I guarantee it.
Is she still with us, Mrs.
I don't know. I haven't seen her since probably 6th grade. So she was old then, but
she'd be like 130 now.
I wonder, like, yeah.
Well, dude, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben, please.
My perception of her is like, I wonder if I saw her now as someone in their 30s, if I'd be like, she's probably 60s, somewhere in their 60s, late 60s. Would I think she was as old then or now as she was then? Like, would she seem as old to me, or would she seem younger to me now than she did when I was a kid? I don't know. It's weird.
It's weird.
Weird how time changes your perspective on things.
It's how I feel about football. Hockey to a lesser extent, but just football, where almost everyone's younger than me now. And for the last few years, there are actually coaches that are younger than me, which really, really makes me uncomfortable, where I'm like, how is this 34-year-old in charge of an NFL team? That's insanity. But I'm tuned into the old teacher thing. Do you remember Mrs. Schmidt, the library teacher? Did you have her?
Yeah. Yes.
So she wasn't very nice, I remember.
No, she was a little harsh.
Yeah, and she was the librarian in our elementary school. But then when Dad moved to Woodland Avenue, when I was in high school, she lived down the street. And you had like a whole nother dynamic with Mrs. Schmidt. where I had to kind of like recalibrate my mind. Be like, okay, you know, from 1989 to 1993, we didn't see eye to eye maybe. But now I'm an older person. You're an older person. I think you're retired. And I don't know if she ever even knew who I was. Probably not. She probably had no idea.
No, she definitely did. She had to.
Yeah,
the teachers don't. Helene says that all the time. Like she'll remember. She's bad with names, oddly, Helene, but she remembers kids from 20 years ago. You know, and she'll see them. You know, she had them once at junior high school, let's say years ago, and now they're grown, married, children. She doesn't miss a beat. Teachers remember that shit, dude. I don't think you should have went to her house and, you know, asked her books.
Right.
Weird. You know what I mean?
Beat her up.
Let the library
being
thing
so mean
just
to me.
kind of die.
There, across from the street from her was the woman. I didn't know her name, but she used to cut her grass with scissors.
I remember this.
Yeah. And this was like a thing that we were like totally fixated on, being like, why? And I believe that we like offered to, like, do you want to? And I think that she was like, you know, rebuffed us. And she would just be out there cutting her lawn with scissors. That's what I do remember that
Giving
very
it
well.
the fresh fade.
Because, you know, we lived that was that hill. And Dad lived like at the top of the hill. And then as you go down the hill, we used to bomb the shit out of that hill. Good stuff, especially in the snow. I was telling Micah, the Bellport High School, the huge hill in front of it, right? That people used to fly down that on you know, sleds across the street, like go across.
No, totally.
Yeah. So this hill, there was this huge hill in front of Bellport High School. It's still there, I'm sure. And people used to sled down it, and there's a main road in front of it, and people used to just slide and just hope for the best. Slide
over that
all the way down the hill because there's no stopping. Go across the street and into the woods on the other side, and like down another hill. It was awesome. Loved it. I don't know where
we lived though. We somehow lived through that.
We did.
Right? I
think about that often. Had no regard for myself at all, and now I'm like scared to do anything. Right.
Really? No, that's a thing. That's a thing that kicked in when I was 40. Like the fear I think of with skateboarding, but it's like you're so aware of how broke you could get, and that sentiment hasn't gotten worse. It just got really bad at 40, and it stayed exactly the same. Like just fear of doing anything, and thinking back to how stupid was I. Not just with skateboarding, but with any kind of hijinks you got up to as a kid.
I got away with a lot of things.
Going down the hill and shopping carts and stuff. It's like, how did I not? If I did that now, I would break into pieces, right? But that's when it hit 40. It took all the way to 40, and I was just like, it gives you that catalog of memories to look back on and be like, how did I live through this?
Yeah,
I would never do that now.
I think specifically because I've gotten into a couple of fights when I was younger. In high school and like early in my college years, like, you know, and I've said before, I got the shit kicked out of me, but like that, I was just willing to fight or like be involved in this huge brawl. Like that was one of the things where I got the shit kicked out of me. I'm like, we're going to meet these guys and fun. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah.
There's a,
you know, and I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like, what, just think of me. I've never really changed, but for some reason I'm like, yeah, we're going to go do that. It's the same thing when I was like smashing mailboxes.
Yeah.
Which I got in trouble for. And I feel mega bad. I felt bad about it immediately. It was funny because I used an empty propane tank to do it. That's still
like
funny.
Mad Max level of shit.
Because Cody had an empty, like, you know, blue Rhino thing in his back. And what we realized was if you drove fast enough, like it would just lift itself up, you know, like you didn't have to. And it would obliterate these things into a million pieces. Just absolutely incinerate them.
I never knew that detail.
Yeah, that's an important detail. Is that I was using a propane tank. But yeah, we got in trouble for that. I felt really bad about that. That was the only time, and we paid for like replacements and stuff and things. But that was the only time I remember Dad being. I wasn't even scared of Dad after that happened. I thought Dad was never going to talk to me again. Yeah, because there were times where I like would do some. I had a really bad, not a bad reputation, but I was really hot-headed when I played hockey. I would go crazy on people. If they like were in the crease, if they touched me, if I was covering the puck and they hacked at my hand, I would go fucking crazy. And I got suspended a couple of times, especially in high school from the league for like 3 games at a time for going off too much. And it's so weird to think about how that was the way I played hockey, like almost like a goon. And then it's like, and then I'm like, but that's not the way I was off the ice at all. And Dad used to get so mad at me when I would do that shit. And that was when I thought he would beat the shit out of me. That specific time, though, when I came home with the mailbox thing and then everything, he thought, he was like, oh, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The same thing happened when I got in that big brawl at like the ice arena with like a bunch of people. And that's one of the times I got the shit kicked out of me. And then a cop like had a list of all of our names or something and like came and got us from the different classrooms or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I didn't get any hits. I mean, look at me, man. You know, like, and nothing came of that. But that was probably, there was a time after that with the same dumb friends I used to hang out with where I got the shit kicked out of me where I thought I was going to die. And that was when I was like, I can't do this anymore.
You need to have those experiences though. As a parent though, it's important and it's easier said than done. Ben may know this, although his kids are still pretty young, but you have to channel the sort of shit that you got up to as a kid and just remember, you know, the kids are going to go through that stuff. Again, easier said than done. Because when you're a kid, exactly what you're saying, you have room for one emotion at a time. It's anger, it's joy, it's all about fun. There's no such thing as repercussions or what comes next. It's all about being in the moment, hence smashing mailboxes. It's hilarious. You're not thinking of anything beyond that. People's property that's like completely not even part of your thought process.
No, I didn't think for one moment about the people who own those mailboxes. That's the crazy thing about it, is how stupid that is, how fucking profoundly stupid it is, and how hurt and upset I'd be if that happened to me. Right?
Yeah.
It is
hilarious.
And it also repositions, and we're getting way off topic. We're going to get into topics in a minute, but it also repositions, like I consider, and this is, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? I consider myself a totally good and docile kid. I just had these moments. Like I did well in school. I didn't get in trouble in school, like any of that kind of stuff. But I just kind of fell in with different people that convinced me different things were kind of standard. And kind of these like hockey guys I hung out with were just hothead crazy dudes. And so I got sucked into it. And it's like, oh yeah, so this is what we do, right? This is the kind of shit we do. We go fuck up, you know, this guy who's sleeping with my friend's girlfriend or whatever, you know? And
I think it's just that the way we handle things changes. Like, I used to be a hothead when I was in high school. I got into a lot of fights, and I used to just like my face and head would get hot, just like burning when I'd get angry, and I'd just go crazy sometimes. It wasn't just like at the drop of a hat, but it was, you know. And now the other day I was thinking, like, what would I do if that guy just pushed me right now? Like there was a crazy guy that was outside the store. I was like, what would I do? Like, I would protect my family. You know, somebody tries to break in, that's not going to end well for anybody, but I don't think I'm capable of getting in a fight. I would probably, you know, find other ways to deal with it now. And I was thinking about you, Colin, when you said that you didn't know that you were the same, because yesterday I was editing Sacred Symbols, and I heard you say that if someone let their dog poop in your yard, you would go apeshit on them and hang flyers around the town. I think that's your 39-year-old way of dealing with.
That's not what I said, though. What I said was that because we have these beautiful 4K cameras outside, I will blow up your image and make a sign out of it.
Right.
I'm not gonna put it up all over town. I'm gonna make like a huge 20 by 20 banner of you letting your dog shit on my grass, because I'm very petty.
Yeah.
When people do shit like that, you know. I live for that level of pettiness. That's never going to go away at all, because I don't carry myself like that. But that's a good point. Yeah, times change. It's very interesting to think about those experiences. I just think about them being like, who was that? Because if someone confronted me to fight me now, I'd probably just go into a turtle position. And I'm way more better able to defend myself now than I was when I was like 16. And for some reason, I was like, yeah, fuck this. Let's go. I guess you didn't want to be looked at as a bitch either. You know?
Yeah.
Or have your friends in that era call you gay.
No, it's peer pressure, you know?
There you go.
Putting sharks in people's mailboxes. But I'm the same person I was back then, so that hasn't changed. I would probably still do that again today.
What does that mean?
I told you when we put that dead shark in that guy's mailbox.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What? Oh my God. Worst thing I ever. Oh, okay. So, you know, you go to like an aquarium, they got those little sharks in jars. All right. It's like preserved. We had one. And my friend who will not be named was like, let's go put it in someone's mailbox. Dumb thing. We only walked like 4 houses down because we didn't feel like going very far. So we walk down the street, we crack open the jar. Worst thing I've ever smelled. I think it's like formaldehyde. It's the worst. It's still to this day the worst thing I've ever smelled. We like go to put the shark in the mailbox. It was way more liquid than we expected. And I do feel bad about this, but like it was so much liquid. It's just like pouring out of the mailbox. The shark's in there. We shut the door. We start running. And then we were like, the smell is so strong. I can still smell it from here. It's because it was all over us. You know, we just didn't realize it till we got back home. So that was our punishment, was that, you know, then we stank. And then the next day we were like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Like, what a horrible thing. Now it's like bacon in the sun. The mailman's going to open it up. There's a dead shark in there. The homeowner's going to open it up. We felt bad after, but at the time it seemed like the funniest thing in the world to just put this thing in some guy's mailbox. Yeah. So
why that guy? Why did you hate that guy?
No, we don't know who it was. We just walked. No, we just walked like 4 houses down and just put it in a mailbox. I do feel bad about it, but it was one of those things that, like, it's still funny. I mean, it is still funny. I still laugh at it.
It is funny, but I just
shouldn't have done it.
I try to be, especially as an adult, like sensitive to the other side. Like, how would a person feel like that happened to?
Exactly. Now I feel bad.
Right. Exactly. But for some reason, that just was totally disconnected. And I'm not saying that there weren't funny moments during the hijinks that I did, because there definitely were. When we went and like had this fucking melee at a hockey arena and we drove away, one of the guys kicked my friend's car as he was driving away, and my friend Jeff was driving, and he was like leaning out of the car and he was like, "Dent resistant doors, bitch," as he drove away. And I'll never ever forget that as long as I live. That to me just made me, in a moment I was like, that is the funniest thing ever. It was a Saturn that he was driving. But I just try to think, generally speaking, that I was like, damn, dude, I don't know. Not that I did very many bad things, but let's say like those 3 or 4 things where I was like, what the fuck was that all about? That's a little strange and out of character. But I realized, not to excuse myself, it was always due to peer pressure. It was never, and that's weak, but that's true. It was never just me doing something off of the top of my head, because I didn't have that kind of need or want to be that way. So I'll tell you this about a few of the guys I used to do that, like play hockey with, and that were kind of like hotheads. They're all cops now.
Nice. All in New York?
Yeah, 2 of them I know are NYPD, and one of them is a criminologist, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting.
Okay. All right.
So we all have our moments.
I draw the hockey thing more to the cop thing, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, hockey, FDNY, NYPD hockey is pretty serious.
That's a big thing. Sure.
They just played a few months ago, actually. Okay, let's get into the topics at hand. I'm looking here. I feel like there's a connection between 2 of these, so why don't we begin with those? Micah, we'll go to you first and begin with your topic this week.
Right on. So what I want to talk about is the downsides of online shopping, because we often extol its virtues. I think all of us, being people who love being at home, genuinely like online shopping. There is a true convenience to it. And especially, I grew up in a very rural area, similar to like where Ben lives. There are places that it's like, I don't have this type of store near me. Online's the best, cheapest way to get items at times. But there are like a ton of downsides to it. And I just wanted to kind of get into that. What spurred this on was that Colin and I had a whole debacle trying to order a bread machine on Amazon. So I want to start out. I love to bake, but I just have limited time during the week. Like, I'd be able to bake bread on the weekends, let's say, but if we run out midweek, then it's like I don't really have time to make a loaf of bread. So I wanted to get a bread machine just for that ease of use. During midweek, we run out of bread. I can make a loaf quickly without as much, hands-on time, essentially. That was just the whole idea. We order the bread machine on Amazon. Colin accidentally ordered 2, but this actually makes it even better. I open it up, and the bread machine's missing a couple pieces. And it's just clear that it has been returned. Like, it's missing some key components. This thing was obviously returned by another customer, but they forgot to put the bag of parts back in it. It didn't look used. It still looked new, but it was just missing some pieces. So then I'm like, whatever, all right. We realized we ordered 2 of them. I open up the second one. It has the pieces, but it's been used. Like, it has flour in it. I went to take off the dough paddle and it's crusted on, like there was food under it. It clearly had been like wiped out, but there was still flour all around it. Like, you could just tell this thing had been used. So here we are, like, we ordered 2 things from Amazon, and I want to say this was ordered directly from Amazon, not a third-party seller. It was shipped and sold by Amazon, and they sent us 2 used items, basically. And it's just, that hardly ever happens. Amazon's usually pretty spot on. But here it was that now I have to deal with returning these. Amazon makes it easy. All right, hassle-free return. We didn't have to talk to anybody. We didn't have to fight with anybody. But I did have to bring 24 pounds worth of items to the UPS store by myself and handle that. And it just had me thinking, I wish I'd just gone to Target and just bought this. You know, here I was thinking I'm doing the easy thing. Amazon has it on sale, free shipping, get it in 2 days. And I should have just driven to Target and bought one, because now I have to deal with returning these and all this rigmarole. And another thing that happened also this week was doing our, wedding registry. Colin's sister ordered one of my most wanted items, which was an olive oil cruet, the little bottle to pour the olive oil out of, right? And it arrives and there's no top to it. So all it is the bottle, no pour spout. So I email the people to tell them, hey, all I got is the bottle, it doesn't have the pour spout on it. And they email me back saying, we're sorry, your item didn't arrive. We'll send you a new one, which is fine, but that's not what I said. And that's not the issue. And now I'm going to have one of these that has all the pieces and one that's missing pieces. What do I do with that one? It's just, dealing with customer service now. It's one of those things that if I had, not that, this was a gift, obviously, but if this was an in-person registry, like you go to Bed Bath & Beyond, which no longer exists, but you would have noticed like, hey, this is missing a piece, I'll just bring it back, or not have bought it in the first place. So just for as much as I love online shopping, there's consistently just a couple hangups with it. Another one being surprises being ruined. I don't know how many times I haven't been able to intercept a package so Colin sees it, or the same happens, Colin orders something for me. Well, I happen to be out and about. I get home, here's a box on the doorstep and it says exactly what's in it. And that was, a present for me.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome. That was really great. Yeah, you can tell the story if you want.
Oh, no. I mean, it's happened a couple times. The most recent was with my bass, Colin, which I knew it was coming, but still, I was out getting groceries, I think. I come home and here it's just all on our doorstep, the bass, the amp, and everything just says right on the box what it is. And, no discretion at all. It happened also, it was last Christmas with the KitchenAid mixer, or 2 Christmases ago with the KitchenAid mixer. It gets delivered, just says right on the box, KitchenAid stand mixer. And of course, I just happen to be out grocery shopping. I come home, it's on the doorstep. Colin didn't know it got delivered. He was probably recording a show. So things like that happen often as well. It really is just, the more that I sort of am, an independent adult who does my own shopping and everything, I love the merits of online shopping, but there's more and more problems that I keep having with it recently that are just making me say, maybe I should go back to brick and mortar stores more often because maybe I'm relying on it too much. So I want to just kind of pass it over to you guys as to, have you had any recent issues that come to mind, any major issues come to mind? I'd love to start with you, Ben, because you had actually told me you had a very similar idea. So I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, the reason, as Colin mentioned, yours and my topics are similar is because initially my topic was, it was just going to be online shopping in general. But I like the problems with it. And I think I've had some problems. I mean, you oftentimes, you detailed many of the problems that I would have brought up too, with, getting the wrong thing or getting something that's, only half of what it was supposed to be. And then going through all the trouble of talking to customer service and everything else. And like you said, there is a lot of benefit to the probably AI chat most of the time that, Amazon or other stores have. But there's also some detriments to it too, right? Like, you tell them this wasn't all here and they say, we're sorry you didn't get it.
Yes.
Great. I have a second one. I could throw the other one away, but that wasn't the point. But I think I actually want to push back a little bit, because I would say that for the number of online shopping issues I've had, they stick out because they're not the norm. At least for me, they're not the norm. Probably 95% of everything I've ever bought online has come exactly as it was supposed to, has come when it was supposed to, or very close to it. And I think that it's just that, we're human. We're the Yelp generation. The bad things stick out in our minds more than the good. So for me, I think online shopping is definitely a net positive. There are obviously those those goofy issues. And like half the time I'll want to return it if I want to return something to Amazon specifically. They're like, great, you can take it back to Kohl's and they'll send it for you. And I'm like, they used to just give me a label I could print out, which is a hassle in and of itself, because who has a printer in 2023? Who uses paper? I don't know. But I knew Colin was going to pull out his notebook or something.
No, you can't see it, but
okay.
There's my bong too, but there's my printer. Yeah.
I say that somewhat tongue in cheek, but also mostly serious. But they're like, well, your only option if you want to return this is to take it to Kohl's. And I'm like, okay, like the whole reason I ordered it online was so I didn't have to go anywhere, and so it could be here very quickly. So then I got to remember to pack it up and take it to Kohl's, or I'm out and about and I'm like, oh great, I should have brought that with me. And then I go in, and the Kohl's people, usually very nice, they're used to handling Amazon returns, but they're like, could you fill out this survey for us based on how your return experience was? Oh, and also here's a $20 or 20% off coupon. It's only good for 3 days. And I'm like, great, now I have to find something in 3 days. Like, I don't actually think like that, but like I only got 3 days to find something. All I did was bring something back, and now you give me a whole new commitment I got to make. And then there's just so many things with it. The last time I took something back, I took it back for Emily, and there was a guy in the parking lot with a cart just running around with his teenage son. I think it was his teenage son in the cart. And they were just running around the parking lot. I'm like, am I going to get my card dinged while I'm here? Like, this is why I ordered it online. I didn't want to deal with people. I wanted to just click a button and it'd be at my door. So I think I agree that there are a lot of issues with online purchasing, shopping. But for the most part, I strongly prefer it, because even the return process when I have to take it back to Kohl's or something like that, which, by the way, why did they work something out with Kohl's? That's just the weirdest.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
For us, it's the UPS store. Like, everything we order on Amazon tells us to bring it to a UPS store. The annoyance for me with that is it's like, all right, well, this was a large item, and now I got to figure out how to get it to the UPS store. It's things like that. It's less the car and more my tiny little arms. It's more it's more of that.
Right.
But it is. You're totally right. Like, obviously, online shopping, man, I do it all the time. Too much, in fact. That's one of the problems with it. Actually, I had to go through and disable a ton of like sales emails, because my thing was just, you see a sale and it's like, oh, well, it's a good time to buy it, but I didn't need it now, and I did just go and unsubscribe from a ton of stores and instead say, like, if I need something, I'll go to their website directly. I can't keep getting these emails every month saying they have 25% off and then just buying something when I didn't actually need it. So I did have to do that as well, just because women, we're gatherers, right? You guys are the hunters. We're the gatherers. All right. We enjoy collecting things. Why do we love going to the store so much? It's instinctual. I love collecting things in a cart and purchasing them. It's just, it's evolution. But it certainly became a problem when it was like, I didn't actually need socks yet, but I got this email about socks and just bought a whole bunch. It's addicting. It's too easy, way too easy to just justify this purchase when it's like, well, it'll just show up at my house in 2 days. Like, free shipping, score. It's just, these things just happen. But Colin, what are you thinking on this, my dear? How are you feeling? Tell me some of your downsides to online shopping, or maybe you're like Ben and it's like maybe just mostly good and you get no downsides.
Yeah, I actually wrote a surprising amount of notes here as you've been talking and everyone's been talking. I would say it's certainly a net positive, a significant net positive, but what I'm concerned about it for I guess different reasons than just the quality stuff. For instance, Amazon I look at as a complete modern marvel in a lot of ways. It's an amazing logistical feat what they do. It's almost impossible to imagine how they even do it in some way, but it also has created vertical monopolies. And now we see in our neighborhood, and I'm sure in other people's, Amazon is basically just cutting out the delivery fleets, which is just solidifying their vertical monopoly. And I don't like how the online ecosystem trends towards monopolies, because when someone does something really well, there's no barrier to it accessing how they do it well. So that's the way IGN became huge. That's the way a lot of things happen over time. Napster back in the day, and on and on and on. And Amazon really changed things with Prime shipping and just complete ubiquity to the point where it's actually pretty brilliant the way they've done everything and kind of elbowed everyone out. But I'm bummed that it's actually so good that it stops me from exploring more merchants, because you look at things where it's like, well, I have Prime and I don't want to pay for shipping, and so I'll just go here or whatever. And then you also realize that Amazon really is just undercutting everyone as well, and that the prices often are better there. So I'm more bummed in terms of online shopping with what it says about my own behavior with online shopping and the ease of me just going and I spend fucking insane amount of money on Amazon, and I don't even think twice about it. I buy fucking so many things on Amazon, and like we get things, they must live here by how much they deliver to our house. Probably 4 or 5 times a day or a week at times they're delivering to our house.
Well, and, right. Yep. Like just planning the wedding, for example, I have ordered like all of our wedding favors was stuff I ordered on Amazon or Etsy for some things. But like the little boxes, all that stuff's coming from Amazon because it's the best price to get it, cheapest way to get it. And then also like some of the decor items for the wedding that I got, Amazon had the best price on a lot of this stuff. It's like I could pay double if I wanted to buy it at Michael's, but why would I?
Right.
But like you said, you see them in the neighborhood. The Amazon truck is here twice a day in this neighborhood. There's 2 different Amazon trucks. You'll see one in the morning and a different one in the afternoon. Like our neighborhood, everybody shops Amazon constantly. You can just tell.
And they ship things out, I would even argue, quicker than they claim they're going to. Like where I get things early all the time, like literally the next day often, because they want to just get things out or whatever. I just am bummed that the economic realities of how much they have a firm lock on things precludes me from really exploring more of the online shopping options. And that's obviously a choice, but it's also just being a smart consumer and me not really caring about the back end. This is what I was talking about video games, where if people commoditize video games and play them just as commodities, entertainment commodities, then it makes sense that they don't care about how the game got to them or how much they pay for it, and they want to get the best possible price. Well, that's how I feel about Amazon. And so I have to kind of break myself of that. And I do give credit, and I've said this before, to companies like Walmart and others that have I said when I first moved to San Francisco, I lived with someone that worked at Walmart.com. This was in 2007, and they were already doing a really nice job, but it just hasn't really broken the spell of Amazon. And I wish that I could just do a better job with that, which is why I like going on Etsy sometimes and doing other things and buying those kinds of things. But other notes I wanted to say here, let's see. So I've had good experiences, and I think I've had lots of good experiences, and I think there are companies that are worth shouting out for better or for worse. So a company I will shout out for better that I've had really great interactions with is the music company Sweetwater. This is a famous website that I've only more recently been familiarized with that is out of Indiana, I want to say. And it's just all stuff for musicians, instruments, and all the accoutrements that you might need. But they have like mega good customer service where they follow up with you and call you about your stuff and talk to you down the line. Oh, how's the drum kit going and all that. And obviously this is a great way to keep repeat business, and they're always on the mind when I need sticks or skins or whatever. And so I appreciate that. And they've been really good. This jungle kit from back here comes from them, and your bass as well. Unfortunately, with the bass being shipped in Fender boxes and your amp and all that being shipped like that, is that I ordered them so close to the vest too, instead of keeping them here because I didn't want to hide them. I thought, oh, I'll just order them as close to the day as possible. And then, they just came and ruined it, but that's fine. It's the same outcome. I've had some bad interactions though as well that I wanted to call out here. I love Mack Weldon. They sometimes sponsor the show. Actually, they haven't been a sponsor in a while, but I wear Mack Weldon sweatpants all the time and underwear and whatever. I love Mack Weldon. And I ordered shorts at the beginning of the summer, like late spring, early summer. And then they just didn't ship them for 2 weeks. And then I thought there might have been a problem. And then I just emailed them and I was like, are you guys ever going to ship my clothes? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry. That package got lost. I'm like, what the fuck? How is that not showing up for you in some way that you haven't shipped my stuff? So that was weird. DoorDash, I wanted to say this, and this goes back into like the algorithmic, are you talking to a person thing and this, I get really concerned with Amazon with this when I return things, and I almost never return things, but I'm like, there must be some sort of algorithmic balance where they just trust that you're saying what you're saying and things are returning and they don't give you much problem. But Micah and I have ordered Buffalo Wild Wings from DoorDash a few times, and the last 2 times they've missed an item. And so I submitted it the first time, got a refund or whatever, which is fine. And then the second time I did it, and they're like, we noticed that there's a lot of problems with your orders in particular, kind of thing. And then I had to send them an email with a picture of the food item. So I thought it was just going to have like a person look at it or whatever. But then I sent the email out with the picture, and then I immediately got a refund. So the whole thing was that they just wanted to see if you were actually going to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, so there's all this sort of weird stuff, and the DoorDash stuff and Uber Eats stuff annoys me the most, because you really got to rely on these people. It's like, do you have all my food or don't you? When I used to order food in Santa Monica or San Francisco, and they wouldn't have your drink or something. And then you can't help but they're like, well, it's the restaurant's fault. I'm like, actually, it's your fucking fault, because you're the one delivering the food. So do you have everything? Like, what? So that kind of stuff annoys me. Micah also knows everyone knows I buy a shit ton of G.I. Joes. Here's Range Viper, remake of the classic 1989.
Oh, nice.
One of my first G.I. Joes, actually, that I bought myself. And I got one recently. It was Tunnel Rat, actually, Dag. And the all-new Tunnel Rat. He's a rat. And the box was just totally fucking messed up.
It was
and
horrible.
It came from Hasbro. And it definitely didn't happen in shipping. I'm not returning them anymore, because I'm just going to open them anyway at some point. It doesn't really matter. I just don't have the patience for the shit to deal with them. But it's the same thing that happened with Walmart when I was buying the 3 3/4 inch ones that they haven't made in a few years now. But the packages were obliterated by the time they got to you.
They have a terrible reputation for that.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. I just don't get it. And I also got a vehicle from them, like a Cobra Hiss or something, that was just missing the driver. And I didn't return that either, because I was like, I just can't even deal with this shit.
Wow.
You know? So there are a few things here and there, but I'm generally with Ben, where I think it's been totally a net positive. And in fact, it's so strange, because my early interactions with online commerce, it was almost unimaginable that you would ever buy anything online for a while. At least in my experience growing up. It would be like seeing TV commercials, and you would see things for products, but you would never think of buying them. At least I wouldn't. Obviously someone was, but it really started in the late 90s with me with eBay, though, where I was way too young to be on eBay, but I was always on eBay buying G.I. Joes, buying video games, and doing all sorts of things, selling stuff. And that began the commerce adventure. But I remember when I was in college, the first place that I ever bought online merch from was 80stees.com. And that Castlevania Weapons of Mass Destruction shirt that I wear still, probably 20 years old now, that's a shirt from that order. And I remember at that moment, I can't fit in some of the shirts I bought anywhere. I'm just too big for them now. But that's where I got the I Am That Man from Nantucket shirt, which I love, and others, which was like the funniest shirt ever. Trashy, of course, Whiskey Tango shirt, but fun to wear nonetheless. And then kind of becoming more and more comfortable with it. And now I go on Amazon, and I don't know if you guys have ever done this, look at your order history. Like my order history goes back to 2006. And you can actually see the specific things you bought. It's a little nostalgic and sad, actually. You remember, oh, this, oh, that, oh, this was for this person, or that was for that, or this was for this class.
Yes.
So we also have this legacy developing with all of these things as well. So yeah, that's a lot to say. But as I was reminded when we went out a day or two and we went to BJ's, that was, I guess, 2 days ago, which is the Price Club. And I'm reminded about how much I like being in stores sometimes too, specific stores. And BJ's is one of those places where it's just so open. There's not that many people in it. You have lots of space. And then Dag, we were leaving BJ's, and I do the cart ride thing like Dad does. Every time I'm in the parking lot, I ride the cart like a million miles an hour to the end. Uncle Mike was at the gas station next to BJ's, and he texted me. I didn't see it until afterwards, saying like, look across the way. But then he came to see us because he pulled around the corner like really sharp, like he was a cop almost. And like pulled like right in front of us.
That's such an Uncle Mike move.
It was funny. So,
but not before they checked your receipt on the way out.
No, they got to check it. And sometimes they're very thorough, and sometimes like the guy we had this last time, Micah, he didn't give a shit. Yeah, he was like,
no, he looked at the cart and he just looked at the receipt and signed it. The time I went before that, the lady counted all the items. Mm-hmm. She miscounted, counted them again. You know,
wow.
we had a funny thing though at BJ's. The lady at checkout, usually. Colin and I just have a system. I usually shop alone because I'm often out grocery shopping while Colin's doing the podcast. So usually I just go by myself. I pay for the groceries. And then just at the end of the month, Colin just reimburses me for the groceries type thing. So we're at BJ's and like Colin's with me. And so he's like, oh, like, do you want me to pay for it or should you pay for it? And the lady overheard and she was like, what? She's like, he's not paying for the groceries. And Colin's like, well, no, I am going to pay for it. But he actually said she pays me back for the groceries. And the face she made was just like, this man. And I was like, no, I usually shop alone and he pays me back for the groceries. And she was
yeah, exactly. I was a sentence into that and I'm like, I'm not even going to bother. Like I really just was like, I don't care what you think. That was a good example of what was going on earlier, where 10 years ago I'd be like, no, I pay for the fucking groceries, lady. Like, I don't. We'll sit down and I'll school you on this. Like, and this time, I'm like, yeah, fine. She pays for the groceries, whatever. And just like walk out of the store.
Oh, because it got even better. Because then Colin takes out his credit card. She's like, "Guess you're paying today." Like she was like, really, she was really
like,
funny.
Get the fuck away from me, lady. You know, you don't know the situation over here.
I like it.
I take care of my woman. You know?
No, you do, because actually you remind me, completely unrelated, but very quick story. With my first boyfriend, we went out to dinner on like Valentine's Day, and he was a bum, didn't have a job. So like I paid for dinner, and we're at a Chinese restaurant, and the waiter's like, normally the man pays. And I was just like, well, I like to, take care of my man type thing. And like, I just remember he was like livid, and it's like, well, it's true. It's like, you haven't had a job in 6 years. What's going on here? But no, absolutely.
The question is why you're with someone that didn't have a job for 6 years.
Well, I'm a nice person.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a very nice person who I liked the person on the inside. I didn't care about money and all that. But as an adult, I was being a little more pragmatic. Money's not everything, but work ethic matters. That's kind of where it falls now. It's like, it's not about the money. It's about attitude, laziness, things Colin is very, very good about. But no, I agree with you on so many of the things that you mentioned. And it is, I also do enjoy being in stores. When after the pandemic started to like everything going back to normal in the mall, like I went to the mall here, and it was just fun to be there. Got a soft pretzel. I'm walking around. I was shopping for dress pants. It was fantastic. Like, it was kind of horrible because I didn't find any dress pants. It was like a very long day with no results. But the soft pretzel, the experience, being at the mall, the horrible soundtrack playing all day. There was just a thing that made me say, yeah, why don't I do this more? But it's because the mall's a half hour away. The stores have weird hours sometimes. There are a ton of reasons why I don't just go to the mall and shop. Or having like bad results of like, I went to 5 different stores, none of them had pants that fit me. I could have just done this online. I could have just gone online, ordered 3 pairs of pants, returned the 2 that didn't fit, and just had it all done in an hour, right? So, Dagan, let me know. We haven't heard from you on this yet. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is, the dark side of online shopping, right? I mean, the upside to e-commerce is the convenience. We all know that. I hear Helene and her mom commiserating about this topic weekly. I mean, it's like a bone of contention that's constant. And that just could be in terms of their frequency. I know my mother-in-law shops all day long. You know what I mean? They're retired. She's got a little loot. That's what she does. And it's not stuff for them. It's gifts for everybody else, So she's no stranger to this dilemma. I have to tell you, I've had very few problems with online shopping ever for myself personally, and to the fact that I could remember vividly the maybe 1 or 2 times I had an issue. I remember there was one time, one of my favorite artists, he's a comic book artist / illustrator, came out with a new book. And apparently this guy developed a rhythm, and fans knew it, that he would have one print run of a book always, ever, because he would just notoriously fall out with the publishing company. There would be one print run, and then that book was never going to be printed again because he'd have some kind of financial falling out, then he'd move on to the next company. So his books always spiked in price because we knew there was always going to be a limited amount. So one of his books, I was late to the game. I didn't even know it was coming out. It had already skyrocketed on eBay to something. This is a $30 book. $200 on eBay. I was like, I'm not doing that. I found a French edition on Amazon. I didn't care about the French language thing. $40. I was like, sold. Did the thing, did the shipping. It was coming from Paris or whatever. And that was a time where, and again, small problem, they just still had it marked as available when they didn't. They ran out. I got in there somehow before that stock got evaluated correctly, and I thought they took my money. They really didn't. They reimbursed me. Again, you're kind of protected by PayPal. I feel like that's like a nice shield for getting reimbursed or making sure you get taken care of. So I had no issues with that. The only downside was I wasn't able to get the book, but I wasn't going to get that in the brick and mortar comic shop either because there was just no way. I think about my online shopping, like what's it down to? Amazon, Target.com occasionally, Best Buy occasionally, and maybe CCS, California Cheapskates, if I need like a set of bearings or trucks or whatever. But I try to support local skate shops. I try not to order stuff online. And I do like the idea of brick and mortar stores, especially local, especially mom and pop. But here's the thing with the big box stores, I find, I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but you go into one of these stores, they're wiped out. I mean, they're vacant. There's nothing on the shelves. And I think because a lot of these companies know a certain high percentage of their sales are coming from online. So they don't even bother to stock the shelves regularly enough to have any kind of substantial inventory.
That's a notorious thing at Best Buy, right? That people...
Best Buy is really bad. Yeah. And Target's the other one that I think is awful.
Target, the video game section, like it'll be wiped new out. Games. They're empty. They might have one copy out. It really is just like they just know you'll get it online.
It's insane. And to the point of like frustration where I feel like I'm trying to do the right thing, less so with a box store. I mean, they're huge corporations, but even more so with smaller stores or smaller chains even, you know, where it gets frustrating, where it is a weird balance though. Like I understand you have the online e-commerce entity of your shop. I understand you have the brick and mortar, but does it behoove you to have that overhead if you're not going to keep the shelves stocked? Because people notice, you know? So that's really my biggest frustration with just the availability of stuff. If you go out and want the tangible shopping experience, Kohl's is an interesting one, Ben, because I wonder if that's a Pennsylvania thing. Maybe, it's a big department store here across the state. And that is a store I will not go in because
really?
I hate Kohl's. I detest it. And that's because apparently they carry brands that are really sought after in clothing and cosmetics and stuff like that. But their prices are really good. Like they're known for really good sales. But it's the type of store that's almost like something you would see in a Chevy Chase movie. You go in, it's just there's shit thrown everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a disaster. Like Christmas time all year round.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two registers open and there's 9,000 shoppers.
Oh, goodness.
So if you go to Kohl's, you have to give at least our local Kohl's, you got to give yourself 45 minutes to check out. It's ridiculous. I'm like, why can't you have more cashiers? It gets to the point where Helene's like, I'm going to Kohl's. That could be in a run of like shopping over the course of a day. If I know there's Kohl's in there somewhere, I will not go. I will not walk into that store. There's no way. And I'm really good. Like I'm a patient shopper. I could go shopping with the girls. They could try on stuff all day. I'll be hanging with my coffee outside the sitting room. I'm cool. Kohl's, no, that's a bridge too far for me. But I do wonder if Amazon largely is keeping Kohl's relevant with that whole thing of having to take it back. If I have something to take back, I'll just keep it. I'm not going to Kohl's. There's just no fucking way in hell I'm going to that fucking store. It's a disaster.
I love when they tell you you can just keep the thing. You know, which is interesting. That's the whole thing of logistics. It's a logistical symphony where they're like, it is cheaper for you to just keep that thing than to send it back to us.
And that makes sense.
Which is wild. I mean, that's wild. It's wild that the efficiencies in the economy are so, I don't know, man. I don't like Jeff Bezos. I think he's weird, but what they've done with Amazon and just e-commerce generally and pushing things towards, dude, there used to be, think about this. The term shipping and handling is not a thing anymore. That was the implication behind that was that you were paying for the shipping and you were paying for them to do all that stuff for you too, you know? And now it's just like, no, I get that for free, or it's like part of a small subscription fee. And Amazon figuring out the brilliance, they cracked the code by saying, we'll give you free shipping on everything. You just pay this nominal fee and we're just going to boost that fee a little bit every couple of years. And you're going to love this shit so much that you're not even going to give a shit. And even at $180 or $200 a year, you still think it's a good deal. And here we are, you know? And I also, you know, who else I think was a really important company, low key, to get people involved in online economies and all of this was Netflix.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
like the red envelope. They just went away. They just put the red envelope away forever last month, I think. And that was a whole nother thing of people being like, oh yeah, you can put your credit card. It's okay. It was a much more quaint time like that, in my opinion, where people didn't know. It's like, is this safe? Am I being hacked?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember some of the first things I ever ordered online because we were very late adopters to online shopping. My mom was a catalog shopper. So we'd get like toy catalogs and she would order stuff out of those if there was something that you couldn't get, you know, at Ames or at Walmart. Like my unicycle, for example, that came from I think that was like the National Geographic Kids toy catalog or something like that. But so it just was these random toy catalogs we'd get. And we were catalog shoppers. She'd order clothes through catalogs all the time. Chadwick's was a big one for like ladies' clothing back in the 90s, 2000s. And like getting into online shopping, I remember it was like a little scary. Like you're putting your credit card number in there. And like one of the first things I ordered was a Delonte West Cavaliers jersey, who he's like my all-time favorite basketball player. He played for the Cavaliers. He played for the Celtics. But that was one of the first things we ever ordered. And my mom, like, she didn't type in the security code on the credit card number. So then the site was like, your card's invalid. And we couldn't figure out what was wrong. It was just because like we didn't know what the security code was. Because you don't interact with your credit card like that at the store. Like you hand them the card, they slide it for you. You know, a lot of the stores at that time, like it was just very different. And a lot of our catalog orders, you send a check in the mail. Like she was mailing over a check when she was ordering me toys from the catalog. So it was very different. And nowadays though, like, online shopping is just like second nature. Half of it's done just on my phone, even like. There was a time when I always do my online shopping on my laptop for some reason, felt safer. And I mean, that's like a ridiculous thing to say, but it was. Online shopping was so new for so long. And now it's just part of everyday ordering, just household supplies. When Colin mentions how often we shop on Amazon, it's like, it sounds extravagant until you realize, well, we're ordering like laundry detergent and just like random household things.
I'm not buying like random things. But we're buying, people know, I mean, except for like all of my G.I. Joes, I guess, that I don't really buy. I don't want anything. I buy the only like trivial things I buy on Amazon is the occasional like toy or a book, which I guess is not even really trivial. Otherwise, it's usually something conventional. What's fucking crazy about Amazon is when I go on there, though, they know exactly what I need. You know, when you go into your orders and it says order again, and for some reason it's always at the near the top, it knows that enough time has passed where I'm coming back for that thing, and they know that that's what I want. It's like, damn, dude, this is
it's just time-based
mathematical efficiency.
Part of that,
it's just incredible. We've been played. I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, you were saying earlier about how they could see your order history back 2006. Mm-hmm. Like there's some algorithm running with your order history. It's not only good for you to be able to see it, I guess, but like they've got something set up that they know that like, okay, every 3.5 months, Colin orders laundry detergent or whatever. I don't even know how often you have to use
it's exactly that sort of thing. And the things I notice, I use these like tablets for my Invisalign retainer, and it knows that I need those like every few months. We have filters for our air conditioners, you know, our central air and heating or whatever, and I change those every few months. So it's always like, 3M filters, like, and it's not that it has it in my order history even, or that it's like near the top. It just seems to know exactly. Like you said, like the time has passed. This has happened repeatedly. Yeah. It's brilliant. We've been broken into mathematical parts totally by this online commerce. It's a fascinating thing.
Gives you the timely nod. I mean, the advent of having to keep lists is over because you just add things to your cart or buy it immediately when you think of it. Right. It's kind of, you know what hurts about that though? Like, let's say I need like dog do bags again, or whatever cleaner I use for the counter, when it re-ups in that 4 months and the price goes up, that smarts. It's like, shit, like it used to be $2 cheaper. You know, what the hell just happened?
I always like, Mike and I do that too, where we go back. I'm like, how much did this cost last time I bought it? And
it definitely wasn't this much.
But I was amped. It's very rare, but I was amped when I went to buy my whey protein. It was cheaper this time than the last time.
Oh, see, have you guys ever thought of this before? I think of this a lot. Like, I suspect the Moriarty household is in some sort of Amazon sweet spot, at least at the moment. We do a lot of e-commerce in the house between Lilia and Helene, but it's not just Amazon. Like they do a lot of clothing stuff from various vendors. But with Amazon specifically, I feel like we're in this real sweet spot where, as far as like priority goes, like we order a lot, we're good customers, but we're not the ones with that intense frequency where I think they feel like they could just take advantage of that and maybe ship things a day late because these people, like we already got them. I feel like we're at that echelon now where we're important customers and they're trying to make us buy even more. So it's like, we're delivering this in 2 hours. It's like, all right, cool. Like, why are we so important? I just think because I'm not sure what algorithm they have for that, but I'm sure there's something, right, in the service where it's like low priority customers, maybe new customers are still ramping up with how quick they could get things. The people that are on there every 2 hours, but there's somewhere in the middle where it's like they're trying to get even more out of you. So it feels like the customer service is extra great at this point. And I wonder if we go up or if we go down with our ordering, will that be affected? Like, I'm kind of fascinated by how they track that. And I wonder about, because very rarely do we have any problems where, we just don't get something or something comes in and it's completely unusable. Like I'm like the stuff with the bread machine and even the G.I. Joe toy, I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah, it's crazy. It happens. You know what? It kind of bothers me though that people get. We do our own e-commerce stuff. We sell thousands of dollars a month in merch. And Mike, I want to hear from you on this, and because I think it's an interesting thing to talk about as well. But the reason we did that, no disrespect, I mean, whatever, I don't care about the old company we worked with. I'm not going to say who they were, but like they were totally out to lunch, like completely fucking out to lunch, and that to me was unacceptable. Just the buck didn't stop anywhere. No customer service, no eye to any of that stuff. And we did it specifically. We brought everything in house specifically so we can control that better and hopefully extract better margins out of it, which we've done. It requires us to pay more upfront, but we're making more money on it than ever. But that has given me, in some sense, even less patience for bad customer service, bad e-commerce experiences, because we do it with one diligent person who cares about it. And why can we manage it? And when you multiply that scale and then you multiply the money and the amount of people working, why can't you just multiply that care as well so that so people get what they want? So you get repeat customers. It bothers me. And it's not really one-to-one, but this just comes to mind is when I've noticed this over time and it's bothered me because I was like, why don't you have the same respect for me over time, depending on how much money I have? I've been with Bank of America forever, right? And so they like they didn't give a fuck about me when I had no money, right? I remember when I was in college, I told the story about how they literally lost one of my freelance checks that I definitely deposited. And I had this huge fight with them and all of this stuff. And it was a big deal. I was broke, and I remember dead ass the woman saying to me, like, we'll give you your money and you can leave. Like, in other words, like, take your money out of your account and leave. Now, all these years later, I'm with them still, and Mr. Moriarty, how's it going today? Have you considered? Do you need to speak to anyone today about any services? Or because I have more money in my own personal accounts now, way more, of course, but also the business and all of this, they just treat you better. But I'm like, I've always been a customer of you.
That's so ugly to be that transparent.
Dude, it is mega transparent. I've told Micah this several times where the older I get, and I guess the more I've put away and the better we do or whatever, it's like, they're really, and I just remember that full circle thing. And I'm like, but nothing has changed except for I've been a customer since the beginning. You could have treated me with respect in Boston during that time. And now you treat me with the utmost respect. And I just don't like that. I want us to treat our customers. So if someone buys a sticker and they're not happy with it, and someone buys one of every item and they're not happy with it, preferably we're going to take care of both of them equally.
Absolutely.
And not try to make one feel like, well, your problem doesn't matter and we don't even really care if you're here. And then, now that you've purchased a lot, now, we must take care of this. No, we're just going to take care of you regardless. And that the Bank of America situation, and I'm saying like I have no option to go to another bank, but in reality, it's just annoying to do all of that. And frankly, with all the monetary situations, I think you'd kind of be suicidal if you have a business not to be with one of the big banks that have no liquidity problems. Because dude, imagine if this shit was with like a Silicon Valley Bank or whatever. We would have cleared it, but I would have shit myself. I would have been perpetually shitting my pants until that was resolved. So that's why I'm with one of the big banks. But that's what comes to mind for me. It's like, why can't we just treat everyone with the same amount of respect. And I hope that that's what we're able to do with, our merch shop. So yeah, what do you have to say about that?
Well, yeah, one thing I was going to say, when we talk about your G.I. Joes, for example, and Walmart was shipping them in bubble mailers and they were arriving just completely crushed and, just like this is a collector's item, or even if it wasn't a collector's item, even if it's just a gift for your nephew, you sent me this thing in a bubble mailer and it arrived like it got run over. We literally test all of our shipping supplies. When we got the poster tubes, I mailed one to Dustin. He actually mailed one to someone else even further away, so to make sure it would arrive in good condition. And we've only ever had one poster tube that arrived damaged, and I think it did get run over. Like the thing looked like it had been through a tornado. The guy sent me a picture of it, and we replaced it.
Yeah, we replace whatever.
But we test all our packaging. When we get a new item and a new, type of, envelope or whatever it is, I mail one to Dustin or I mail one to Ben. And I say, how did it arrive? Like when we did the Super Perils Collector's Edition, we tested those boxes. And it's just one of the things come on, Walmart, you couldn't have just, sent one of these out, seen what happened to it. They don't care. You complain about it. You say, look how this item arrived. They'll send you the next 10 the same way. They just don't care. They'll just replace it in the same, shitty packaging. It really is frustrating because, we're such a small operation, but we're doing so much more to try and make the customers happy, make sure they get their items not damaged, not, just destroyed upon arrival. And it is true. If I get an email from someone that their sticker didn't arrive, then we send a replacement. If I get an email from someone that something's wrong with a t-shirt they ordered, it's we work with them on it. It doesn't matter how much they spent. It is just giving them the best service. Or two, one time I ran out of thank you cards because I ordered them maybe 2 weeks in advance, thinking I'd have enough. I did not. And I felt so bad not including thank you cards that I printed my own on stickers. Because I was just they need their thank you. Or then too, I would write handwritten notes saying thank you because I just feel so bad that they didn't get one. But it's Walmart, they don't care. They really just don't care on the most basic level, whether they lose you as a customer or not. It's not, So we try our very best.
It doesn't affect their bottom line.
No,
even a middle-sized company, let's say they could pay a QC person, I don't know, $60,000 a year to ensure that the quality is okay, right? They choose not to do that because they're only going to lose whatever they figure out, 45,000, right?
Exactly.
Unhappy customers. It's such a weird thing, and it's kind of insidious because it's business, right? It's we don't need to, we saved $20,000. We're going to lose 45, but we're not going to hire this guy for 65. We'll just lose the 20. It's so weird, but people, they're not factoring in the human element. It's just the scratch. It's just the bottom line.
Right. I mean, what we talked about earlier, the whole thing where sometimes you go to return something and they're just keep it. Walmart's the number one on that for me. Target has done that maybe once or twice. And I hate when they do it only because we've talked about with DoorDash, I don't want them to look at my account and be you return a lot of stuff. And it's well, I tried to give it back to you and you told me to keep it. It's I tried to give the item back because it didn't fit or whatever. I order a pair of pants, they don't fit. And you're just keep them. But it's I don't want you to see in the future that I kept 3 pairs of pants. I want you to take them back. So it's even that is a problem for me of you're not really saving me anything because now I'm just anxious about it. All right. You saved me a trip to Walmart, but now I'm anxious.
Sorry to cut you off, Micah.
Yeah.
Do you guys know my PS4 story with Target? Colin may remember this story. So when I bought my PS4, I was with Graydon. He was little. And we went in, we bought, I remember this so it was yesterday. We bought Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker for Wii U, and we bought a PS4. Okay. It was the pack-in with Uncharted 4. Guy rings me up. I don't even notice it. I pay for Captain Toad's, which I think was on sale. Let's say it was $40. That's all it was. I walked out of the store.
Oh
he
my
gave
God.
me the handle for the PlayStation, blah, blah. I get home. I'm holy shit, I didn't pay for this. So I'm thinking now, I knew that store. I knew the electronics department a little bit. I knew the guy that rang me up was the manager of that department. Okay. And super nice guy, very cordial, always really friendly. And I'm all right, what do I do here? Because I could get him in big trouble. right? So I'm not going to go into the store. I could go to the store, go to the physical location, do customer service. Let me just call the 1-800 number. And I got this. By the time I finally got an actual person on the phone, they basically, the gist of it was, we can't be bothered with this. You know what I mean? It was just like, this is too much. It's not important type of thing. If you want to, they were basically kind of shuffling me off, like, go back to the store and talk to the customer service department there. They weren't even saying what was going to happen. They were just like, just go handle it in the store where you bought it. And I'm like, I'm going to get this guy in trouble. So a couple of more phone calls later, I'm like, I just felt bad karmically. I was like, I cannot have this free PS4 on my conscience. I should have realized it leaving the store. I didn't. So I go back, tell them a customer service. And basically they were just like, there's really nothing we could do about this. It was really, really odd. Because basically what I wanted to do was just pay for it. And she was like, the only thing you could really do is you could return it and buy another one. But I think there was some sort of inventory thing or something. And they basically were just like, you can't come back in with the unit into the store. Is it still in the box? I'm like, it's still in the package. I didn't touch it. I basically realized at the moment I walked in the front door and tried to deal with it. I called corporate. I explained. And they basically just were like, just take it. They were just like, it's just like, that's our bad type of thing. And I was just like, wow, that's $400.
Every time that has ever happened to me, probably, I don't know, half a dozen times in my life, I've gotten something without paying for it by accident. And I've tried to, the one time I think it was like a candy bar or something, whatever. Sorry, but I know the deal. Most of the time it's like, $20, $40, $50, something like that. And every time I've ever tried to do the right thing and be like, I didn't get charged for this. You do it at restaurants too. Like, hey, you didn't charge me for my second beer. They're like, yeah, that's fine. Give me a bigger tip or something, whatever. But every time they've always done the same thing. The most recent time we bought a Fire Stick, like a Fire TV stick as a gift online. And I went to Target to pick it up because we needed it for like that day or something. And the guy came out and he handed me the bag and he's like, all right, have a great day. And I was like, thanks. And I got back in the car and went home. And when I got home, I realized that there was a Fire Stick inside, which was what I ordered. So that was great. But there was also a pair of the newest AirPods, whatever the newest generation was at the time. This is
oh my God.
That's like a $300, $200, something like that. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't order this. So I called the store directly instead of calling like corporate or something. I called the store directly and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know I can't make it back up there today, but you guys gave me a pair of AirPods that I didn't order. They're like, oh yeah, we went to get that person's order when they came in and noticed it wasn't there. We just gave them another pair. I was like, okay, well, I'm just letting you know. You can write a note for whoever that I'll bring these back in, when I'm up there, 10 minutes away, whatever. And then she was like, oh, that's not necessary. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you could just keep them. It's our bad. And I was like, well, it's a $300 item. I figured you'd need it back for inventory or whatever. She's like, oh, we already took care of it. We already wrote it off in the inventory system. And I was like, so you just want me to keep them?
Well, that's why.
She's
because they don't want to go back in and add it again. That's
right.
That is the.
So I sold them. Was the moral of that story?
Dude,
I didn't have some.
Imagine Target's board hearing that story though. Like that probably would drive them insane because it's like, damn, dude, how many times does this kind of shit happen in the bottom where we're just losing millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of product just because of laziness
loss prevention
of the people. Oh. Well, just because like they won't even receive the item back. If they heard I remember that PS4 story, Dagan, and obviously the AirPods story, I'd be like, what are you guys talking about? Take the product back.
Just take it back.
Yep.
No, I mean,
it's so weird.
When I worked at GNC, we had a problem with theft. It ended up being internal, as one of our employees was selling stuff under the table just to his friends. But I was there when our loss prevention guy got fired. Like, they took him into the back room and they shut the door and they were just screaming at this man because he hadn't solved the case yet. And then he never came back and we got a new loss prevention guy. But it's like, that was really big deal. There was no, like at GNC, there was no refund without giving us the product back. Like, you had to have your receipt or it had to be on your account. Like, we were really strict about returns. And then when it happened that like we couldn't figure out where this missing inventory was, well, they fired that guy and we're like, we'll get somebody else to figure this out. But that was in 2012. I mean, some of these smaller stores are probably still very strict about it. But yeah, you look at a place like Target, it's like, you're really telling me that a $300 item, they just don't care? It's bonkers. I wish that would happen to me someday.
Yeah, that's inefficiency galore. One postscript before we get off this topic and we'll move on to Ben's, because I think it's associated. I have to give a shout out, and Mike, you know this, to Roar, the bong company.
Yes.
This is a German company, and I've always wanted a Roar bong. And they're tempered glass, and they come in like pieces. And this piece off the stem, I dropped on. We have a granite countertop or whatever, marble. Not marble. What is it? Granite? That's what the name is.
Granite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like very hard. So it shattered my piece here. And sorry, the bong's dirty. I haven't cleaned it in a few days. It shattered this, and these are like kind of unique. They're like not hand blown, but I guess blown to order or whatever. Oh. And so I broke this thing. This bong was a couple $100, and I always wanted one because my friend had one in college, and they're really, really beautiful. So I bought one, and then I dropped that thing on our countertop, and it like broke, and it still works. But so then I was like, that's my bad. I ordered a new one, and I made the measurements. There's all these different measurements you have to know. And Colin and numbers doesn't. Colin and oh my God, geometry. Come on. It's like, I'm doing the best I can. So I get the length of it perfect, but the width of it, the one I ordered, the girth of it, it's too girthy. And they make these to order again. So they make it, it takes a couple of weeks. They ship it over. It doesn't fit. I'm like, fuck. So I reach out to them, and I'm like, I sent them a picture of mine, and it next to it, I'm like, this is obviously my bad. I clearly have I showed it to Micah, actually, because it's one of those letters I send. Dagan, you didn't know this, where I try to send like a really witty and clever letter that's like funny or whatever in some way. And this was one of those letters, and it totally worked, and they were really nice. And so they sent me a replacement, even though they made it clear that they would usually not do this and that it's my fault that I did that. And so shout out to Roar, because I must admit, and I've done this in the past, I haven't done this in years, but definitely when I was at IGN, I would sometimes go and attack a company online if I didn't like the way that, I remember doing that to Walmart once, and you kind of use that to, and then I was like, that's so skeevy and lame to use your internet fame in quotes like that. So they knew nothing about me. I didn't say anything other than that I was a loyal customer, and they took care of me. So shout out to Roar. They didn't have to do that. And that's like a $50 piece, replacement. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
German engineering, baby. Shout out to that's no joke. I'm a big believer.
All right, Ben, let's go on to you, my friend. Your topic is related, and as you said, it was interrelated from the very impetus. So I'm curious what you have to say today.
I wanted to talk a little bit about warranties and the scam that they are. And maybe not everybody has the same experience, but I used to buy warranties pretty frequently. And, it's $5 to add on this protection. You're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Then you ask them some questions sometimes, and is this going to include this or that? And of course, as it's my turn to talk, there's going to be a train coming through as normal. But that's just the way things go here in Butler, Pennsylvania. But
I don't hear it, by the way. So
it's not here yet. I can hear it coming from the next crossing. I can hear it because there's like a valley here. Anyway, so there's this whole industry of warranty protection. And, you go on, you get Square Trade or whatever. And I'm not calling out any company specifically that do warranties, because I can't remember which is which and which ones I've had good or bad experiences with. But I used to buy warranties fairly frequently. Now you can hear it, I bet.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
She's a-coming.
She's coming. It sounds so loud. This is just, I know the last time this happened.
Let's hear it.
I think it already blew.
No, that's it. That's it.
That's it.
Oh, I mean, that's no big deal. That's no big deal.
No,
it was way worse than my mom's.
Interruptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember? Were you editing for us when I was at my mom's? I don't know if you were.
I was.
You were. Yeah. So that was
just barely.
That was hysterical.
Barely. Yeah.
My mom might as well have lived on the phantom fucking train from Final Fantasy VI.
No, that guy blows the horn like he really is like, get off the fucking tracks, I'm coming. Like that guy, I don't know, he's paranoid about something. Yeah.
It's so funny because during the day, that horn isn't so bad, but at night, and maybe it's just because it's night and the air is different or whatever, but it's like there's a guy who's on the train and it's like 3 a.m. and he's just really bored and trying to stay awake, and they're only required to hit it 3 times, the horn. And he'll instead of being like bump bump bump, he's like bump 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 bump. It's like, are you like, Are you kidding? Are you going to fall asleep or something? What do you, anyway?
Oh, no, seriously though, some very small tangent. My grandpa was a train conductor when he was young, and he would bring like a shotgun or a pistol with him and shoot stuff that was on the tracks. Like just, so it is. No, they're bored as hell. They're trying to stay awake. Like grandpa would always bring a gun with him and, shoot at cans and stuff on the side of the tracks because just to fuck around. Like, what else are you doing? You're alone on a train.
Yeah. So every time I've ever bought a warranty, it's backfired, except for one, which I'll get to. But there have been numerous times where I've bought a warranty and I've been like, what's this cover? They're like, everything. If anything happens, we'll take care of you. I'm like, okay, great. And then I almost never have anything happen to anything that I buy unless I buy a warranty, which I haven't done in years. But if I buy a warranty, it seems like something goes wrong and I take it back and they're like, oh, sorry, this thing isn't covered. And I'm like, well, you told me everything. What am I supposed to do? Recently, my dad was buying a new TV and he was like, this is a big enough purchase. I'm going to go ahead and buy the warranty because they told him like literally anything accidental, anything that happens to it, we'll replace it within 1 year or whatever it was. He was like, okay, it's like $50. I'll buy it. And so he took the TV home, set it up. It worked fine for like 2 days. And then the board just went on it. And he was like, great. So he gets in touch with I think wherever he bought it, he called them and they were like, you got to call the warranty company. That's who warrantied it. And he was like, okay. So he calls them and they say, oh, it doesn't cover that. And he's like, it says right here in the fine print, it covers it. They're like, well, check with the store you bought it from. So he checks with the store. They're like, no, we won't cover it. It's the warranty company. Checks back with them, nothing. So he's got like, I don't know how much he paid for the TV, but it was a lot. So he's just out this TV and couldn't do anything with it, couldn't resell it. So he ended up just buying a new TV, and they asked him if he wanted the warranty, and he was like, absolutely not. But of course, he was pretty pissed. But the only warranty I've ever had good experience with is actually Apple Care. And I know there are some bad stories out there, but with Apple Care, I have an Apple Watch, and I bought, it's old now, but when I bought it, it literally covered everything. And I was like, yeah, right. Like if I take this thing and smash it with a hammer, they're not going to replace it. Well, sure enough, about a year and a half later, it was still covered under the warranty. I didn't smash it with a hammer, but I ran into a wall and it just cracked the whole face of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens. And I knew there was like I think it was $99 and they would replace it or something like that. That was included with the warranty. And I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. And so I contacted Apple. They were like, here's the payment form for the $99. We'll have your new one out and you can cross ship us the old one back. So I didn't even have to wait for it. Like it came and I sent mine back after it came. And that was perfect. It was like I was like, this is what a warranty is supposed to be. I don't think you know what a reservation is. This is what a warranty is supposed to be.
Anyone can just take the reservation.
And I'm trying to figure out like, what is it actually a scam? Are warranties mostly a scam that they're just trying to get people? At GameStop, they're like, hey, you're buying this $20 used game. Would you like to buy a $7 warranty on it in case something happens? It's like, no, I don't want that. But these bigger warranties that are for these products, are they actually a scam, or am I somehow breaking the one thing they don't cover? And I will say this in addition. A few things that I've ever had where I just could not get the people to make it right, whether it was the warranty company, whether it was the store I bought it at. You take it to Walmart and you return it for store credit. And you get a replacement. If it's a Walmart product. I mean, it's not always, but sometimes they carry it at Walmart and you can do that. Sorry, Walmart, your return policy is too lenient. You don't make me have a receipt. You're gonna get a tax write-off or get the manufacturer to replace it anyway, and they're the ones who screwed me in the first place. So I'm doing it. But I wanted to hear you guys, and Micah, since you were the one on the online shopping thing first, are you a warranty buyer? Have you had good experiences? Which I don't believe you if you say you have. And what are your bad experiences?
Yeah, so warranties for me really are like, I wouldn't call myself a warranty shopper except on rare occasions. The warranty has to be the right price for sure. And it also needs to be like a really expensive item. I'm totally with you. When GameStop would be like, you want to add scratch protection for $5? It's like, no, because if it's scratched or whatever, like big deal. This game was $10. There really is. First of all, I'm going to look at the disc anyways before you hand it to me. But it just was. It's like, no, that's too high of a percentage of the cost of the item. For example, I ordered, this little, essentially it's like a word processor, and It's like $300. Their 1 year warranty is $45. Now it comes with a standard warranty. If you want an additional year, it's $45. And I was just like, that's too high. $45 for 1 year on a $300 item, too high. Don't need it. They still will repair the item just at a cost. And when I Googled the average cost of repairs, it was about $50. So I said, well, if something happens to this, their average repair is only $50. I might as well wait and see if it breaks instead of trying to save maybe $5. And if nothing happens, I spent $45, right? But items that I think the warranty is worth it for, like our KitchenAid mixer that I mentioned, because I looked this up, the 5-year warranty was $60. And it's a $300+ item. Usually you can get them on sale, sure, but like the standard price, and they have ones that are more expensive. Standard price around $300. For this to get a 5-year warranty for $60, that was worth it to me, because those are something that, like replacing a motor, for example, on a KitchenAid mixer is going to run you like $200,
Yeah,
and it's still cheaper than a replacement. But when you factor in the cost of like shipping it back to them, because they don't cover that, of course, but it's like the amount you'll spend just shipping the unit back.
Yeah, that weighs
you
like
might
100
as well
pounds,
save,
right?
Oh, they're
like,
crazy expensive.
yeah.
I mean, it probably is like 20 pounds, 30 pounds, like it's nuts. But that was one that was worth it to me for the peace of mind of this is a very expensive item to me anyways. And I'd rather have that warranty. That seemed like an okay bargain, like, $50 to $60 for 5 years. But when you have something like what I mentioned, $45 for a 1 year warranty, that's crazy. Not going to do it. And certainly you shop online, like Target, for example, you add something to your cart, like headphones. It's like, you want to add a $3 warranty? That's a never. Like, that's a never. I never fall for those on Target or Amazon where it's like, oh, you want to add a $10 warranty to this electronic item you bought. 'Cause they literally offer it to you for any electronic. It could be, headphones. It could be a digital scale, like literally anything. They're like, you want a warranty? That's where it feels like a scam, because it's like, I mean, headphones, man, they probably will burn out in a couple of years, but I'll replace them. I'm not trying to deal with that. That's where it does feel scammy of like, you're just trying to get $3 a pop out of a lot of people, basically. A lot of grandparents buying gifts who are like, I guess I should, and that's what they're going for on those. But like the big items, your washer dryer, your fridge, your dishwasher, so long as it's a reasonable price, I feel like it's worth doing for those items that are like essential to your life, especially because sometimes just having the warranty gets you faster service. It's not always, but when we had, for example, we thought there was something wrong with our dishwasher. There actually wasn't. But it was a mix of user error and also like not using the best detergent, essentially. But when we thought there was something wrong with it, I got such a quick response from this company because we were warranty customers. That in itself was worth it to me of, well, instead of waiting a week for them to reply to my email, they got back to me really fast because they were like, oh, this is one of the people with a warranty. Obviously, that doesn't always happen. Your dad's experience, that's terrible. I mean, it's a TV. That's nuts for somebody to not replace it, to just completely be like, nope, you paid for this and we don't care. But we have had some good experiences. We didn't actually need anything fixed or replaced, but just getting the customer service aspect of it, that did work in our benefit. I don't know if you remember that, Colin. I had to reach out to dishwasher people, but that ended up being a very good purchase on your part to get those warranties on our large kitchen appliances.
Oh yeah, well, that was what I was going to say was, I feel like the more expensive an item, the more you need the warranty. And it's not even the expensive, because we're watching, again, Price is Right, doing all that stuff. Appliances are actually really cheap compared to what they used to be. We try to make our guesses through the lens of that time. So we're watching one from like 1978, trying to make the guesses, and we're wrong or whatever. The microwaves are like $1,000 and all sorts of crazy shit like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So, but they're still important enough where I just want them to be taken care of. So when I think I had an option when I bought the house. Some of the appliances were here, but I bought a bunch of the appliances, only American appliances. And I got the 5 year. You get 1, 3, or 5 years on every one of them, and I got 5 years on all of them because I was just like, well, why would I? It kind of reminds me of it's like, why would you? It's like buying a car. like a new car and not getting the maximum warranty. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Look at how much money you just spent. You need to protect your investment. You don't just buy a brand new car and be like, nah, I'm out of here, you know, and then just like take on all the risk yourself. So I think I actually came to the dividing line for myself, though, in my own life between my phone and my watch, because both of them are cheaper than your average Apple product, because I still use the clicky button phone. What is this?
That's the new SE.
SE. And then this is an SE watch, I think, right? Or something
I think that is the one you wanted, yeah.
Yeah, which is like the newest watch, but like the most basic version of it. And so the phone is expensive enough where I got the Apple Care just in case. But the watch, I was like, it's really like $150. So I'm going to give them another $50. And then I'll probably just have to. So it would just cost me another $100 to buy a new watch. It's not the end of the world. So I try to judge those things. But really, I look at it like health insurance, right? Like it was being asked earlier, do these things make money? Like, how do they work? We have to all accept that certainly they're making money somehow, but that they're there to be taken advantage of still completely. And the only warranty situation I really ever experienced, because I'm not a car person, I had a scooter, a Yamaha Vino, when I was in San Francisco for years, but I took really good care of it. And I used to bring it into the garage for like all of its checkups and all that kind of stuff, like way overdoing it for like a $3,000 thing, but I couldn't afford for it to break because I had no 2 cents to my name. But I bought it's funny, this actually came up when I moved into this house because I have LG TVs, and in reality, I would never have bought an LG TV ever in my life, until Dustin was like, no, dude, you have to understand, like, these are the best OLED, style HD or 4K TVs out there. But I had the first TV I ever bought, big plasma screen. I had a couple of smaller ones, but big plasma screen TV in 2010. I bought it from Costco in San Francisco, and it was an LG, and it fucking sucked. And the panel would break. There would be these things, I don't know how it works really, but like the panel would come loose or something, where there would be these like lines, these like shadowed lines over it. And to Costco's credit, I don't know if it's still the case, but you get like a 2-year warranty when you buy any electronic there. And I don't know if that's still baked in there, but that was the thing, 15 or 13 years ago or whatever. And so to their credit, they did come and replace the panel like several times, and it just kept breaking to the point where it's like, I'm just throwing this TV away and getting a different one. And so that was the only time I ever really had to exercise a warranty in a meaningful way. But we have warranties now on everything. Obviously, your house has to be insured if you have a mortgage. So that's that. But we have like the air conditioning and HVAC thing going, where it's like if our HVAC breaks, they come like right away. It's like, I'm not fucking around with any of this stuff. We need to have the preparation for it, but in hopes, I guess, that you never use it. And certainly they hope you never use it. And then they pay for the stuff that they have to do with people like you that hopefully never have to use it. So that's basically as far as it's gone. But yeah, I would never buy, like, when we have to go and replace those appliances, probably hopefully in the late 2020s or something, or in 2030, I'm going to get the maximum thing on them again. It's like that's just nonsense to put yourself in that position otherwise. So I don't know. That's what I have to say about it. It's just churning capital. It reminds me of health insurance, where it's just churning capital, and you just feel like you're getting something for it, and it protects you, I guess.
Yeah, I think those bigger items, cars, appliances, stuff like that, most of the time the warranties work out okay. And then I feel like you're talking about, KitchenAid with the mixer. I feel like a lot of times if you buy a warranty directly from the company who manufactured it, those are also good. But I mentioned Square Trade again, not to throw them specifically under the bus, because I don't know that I've ever had an experience with them. But the ones from Walmart, or from when you buy something on Target or Amazon or something like that, I just feel like they're all worthless. I don't know.
No, that's important to note, because sometimes I wonder, like the TV situation with your dad, and it's like, should they have sold him that warranty? Was that item like not eligible for it in reality? When you go on Target and it says, they'll replace this item, for free, whatever, it's just a $10 warranty. And it's like, should that be on there? Like, is it really, when it's a third party thing like that, it makes me wonder, like, is Target just showing me this and they shouldn't be? Because maybe that is the problem, versus when I go on the KitchenAid website and I click on, what item did you buy? A mixer, and all the things. And they're like, yeah, all right, here's the warranty for the mixer. Yeah. There's no doubts with that.
Right.
But can you really trust, some of these
generic
other companies?
Warranty. Right.
Exactly.
Dagan, what scams have you been a part of?
It's about to get real. Listen, I'm the sucker. I'll give you guys 2 pieces of trivia with this. There is no piece of tech or anything electronic or motorized that I have purchased in the last 20 to 30 years. Let's say 25. Let's draw it in the middle. That I have not purchased a warranty on. And I have never once invoked a warranty on anything. But I'm just inherently such, like, I am the epitome of not being a gambling man. I am not a gambling man. I don't want to take a risk. And it's to the point now that I feel like I've been burnt so many times that I would really like to break the cycle. But I just fucking know as soon as I don't do it, that's going to be the thing. And maybe I take a risk on something that's a little less costly, but I know I'm at that phase now where it's like, I gotta sort of break the OCD. It's not necessary. I mean, every television, every DVD player, every household appliance. We've been here for 12 years, so 2 waves of appliances, right? COVID happened. Everybody in the family got a new laptop. I got a really nice one. The rest of the family got mid ones. But 4 laptops, everybody gets the $130, 2-year warranty. That's another $400, $500. It was like, I don't even think twice. It's like, I don't want iPhones. I remember the kids both got 2DS XLs, warranties on those. It's Nintendo shit. It's not going to break. Why? It gets to the point of being unreasonable. But again, just afraid to go outside of my nature with that. Colin talks about insurance. I remember talking about him with our respective pets, with our dogs. Like, there's no way I wouldn't have the best health insurance.
Oh yeah,
because I know as soon as
that's the same way for us.
Kiki's getting hit by a car. As soon as I cancel it,
you're going to be put in a position. This is what I was saying to Dustin. We just came up on Sacred Symbols because I was surprised that he didn't have health insurance for Frisk.
Oh,
and I was like, dude.
With that.
We got them in immediately. We've already gotten value out of it for both of them because we had to bring Treble. Treble like got sick for eating something once.
Yeah.
And Rush had knee surgery already. And Trupanion's dope, man. They're a great company. But my whole thing is, and we're in financial positions where it's like you could make really whatever decision you want, which I appreciate, but I don't want to be in the position where it's like your dog has cancer, $10,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I'll pay it. But that's going to suck. So now I'm just never going to be in that position. And imagine someone being in that position that can't afford that too. That's, you have to make a life or death choice for your pet. So I don't want to be in that position. So I think pet insurance is really important.
You have control. Yeah. Just don't put yourself in that position. Exactly. I pay, it's a different policy. $70 it's up to now a month for Kiki. I mean, it's more than my fucking kids. But there's no way I'm going to cancel it, because I'm just not willing to roll the dice. Yeah. I think of warranties, though, they are sort of glaringly predatory. I'm fully aware of that going in, and I'm just not. And it's, just the nature of a warranty. Let's say you go into a Best Buy, you buy a pair of AirPods, right?
Or Target gives you a pair for free.
I should have bought those for pennies on the dollar, my friend. I wish I knew. But let's say you get the AirPods, $200. You get the warranty. It's 2 years, $30, whatever it is. Maybe it's more than that, $45, let's say. That's going to cover the first year or two. Nothing's going to go wrong with that. They're predatory by their very nature because it's only going to have problems later on. The car thing is important because cars are so costly, and many of them come with the, with a sort of warranty built in. But here's the thing. Most cars today, the economy car, the sort of era of the economy car is over. Cars are expensive. Most anything you're going to buy, we could argue about, domestic versus foreign and the quality of the different brands. But most anything you're going to buy is going to hold up for the initial 5-year, 60,000 mile, right? It's after that you have the option to pay the extended warranty. That's really what you need. And that is what you're going to pay for. Because the cost of the initial warranty is built into the sticker price of the car. So that's a whole nother thing. And that's where I would argue still to this day, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but buy Japanese when it comes to automobiles. Listen, I love German cars. I drive one. I still wouldn't. I'm not on my first German car. I wouldn't recommend buying a German car if you're into, quality and adhering to a warranty. You still gotta buy Japanese. Really, honestly.
Isn't there a joke about you don't drive a BMW, but aren't there jokes about
I don't have a BMW.
Aren't there jokes about BMWs that like they basically disintegrate? Like, I've seen that, but I've seen those like memes before about them. I don't know anything about cars, but I've seen that meme enough to know
I think they're
of
the three major German brands. I think they're at the bottom of the barrel in terms of quality. It's cyclical right now, but historically, BMW was better than they are now. Mercedes always had the bad reputation, but I think Mercedes is at the top of their game, and it's an interesting sort of dichotomy in the way it evolves. But I was just going to say, like with the car thing, though, specifically, I think you have to watch out because that's really where you have to invoke or think about or be thoughtful about the warranty because you're spending so much money. Like, I agree with Colin. There's a certain price point. I think of a Cintiq monitor that I draw on for my work. $4,000. There's no way in hell I'm not getting a warranty on that because I am not paying another $4,000 for a Cintiq monitor. So you want to be protected, but you got to kind of use your discretion and you got to be discerning about, I think it turns out I could have saved a lot of money. And it was definitely a learning curve for me. And there was definitely an arc with that. And I don't know. I just don't know if I'm willing to. It's just like, I just know that's my nature, just to feel protected and to say, like, I want to be covered if something goes wrong. I really admire the people that kind of throw caution to the wind and say, fuck it. But I know if I do that, it's kind of artificial. Like, I don't really feel that way. I'm going to be anxious about it. So if I go outside myself, I wonder. I mean, I have to buy that little $100 thing. Maybe I buy an Apple Watch or something for $150 and just see, like, just roll the dice on the warranty and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's what I did. I think you'll be very comfortable. You and I are very similar. I think you'll be very comfortable doing that because it's like Micah was saying, warranties on video games. I'm like, I'm not getting that's insanity. I mean, obviously I don't blame them for trying to do that, but that's not happening. And that's why you should just buy digital games, by the way.
No, that's not the reason.
Ben, are you satisfied? Or is there anything else?
Are you saying your watch was only $150?
I think my watch was $150 or $199, something like that.
I feel like mine was like $450 when I bought it.
No, definitely not.
Oh yeah, no, we buy the cheap
I have
Apple
the cheap
electronics because I need
I
a new
bought
Apple
mine like
Watch
5 years ago. So.
Well, like mine's from 2017. And it's having a lot of problems to the point now that like I'll try to swipe down to view a notification. It just doesn't do it. I bring up my wrist to look at the time. It just doesn't do it. So like she's tired.
I mostly use
it's time to replace it.
Now, boss.
But I do. It's like I want to replace it finally. But it's like I'm gonna get the cheapest one they have because this lasted a very long time. But I don't need the EKG function. I don't need all these extra things, man. Just watch. Count my steps. That's it. That's all I want.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So yeah, the SE is $249.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was a little off.
Still, I feel like that's
to me,
reasonable.
I was like, I'm not buying because
no, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I bought mine, it was like after taxes and everything. And maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. It was after the warranty. It was $450 or something like that. But still, it was enough money that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this warranty just to check it out. And I bought it for my Mac too. And of course, I didn't need it within the time that it was good for. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But
yeah. Well, Mac's a good example. Like our dad taught us this. Like a lot of this starts with buying quality, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's a brand you identify with or have come to know that's going to do you well, or just studying up on Consumer Reports and doing your research. So much you could get out in front of so many of these things just by being informed. I'm not always, you know what I mean? There's a lot of knee-jerk reaction. We got to buy things. We're in a hurry to get something, or you just want something. You just sort of kind of enact that consumerism. You're just like, I want this, or it looks cool. I've certainly done that with cars. I'm just like, that car is badass. I just need it. Then you get burnt. So but that's a learning curve. You know, like you only know brands over time. You know, that's the thing that I get fascinated with too. Like our Uncle Mike, die hard, dyed in the wool, buy American, automobiles and everything. And I like have a lot of respect for that. But he's also, that's a thing that has served him well, right? I completely disagree with it. I've been on the other side where I've bought American products and I'm just like, this is a lemon. You know what I mean? So isn't that interesting that we have different, it might be, and you know, listen, it might be buying Cadillac.
Yeah, he's buying Cadillacs and you're buying whatever.
Versus buying Chevy.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
or, you know,
he also leases them, right? Like Uncle Mike
does
the lease for 3 years. He never keeps it. So
he's got it dialed in.
I mean, if a car is going to break down in 3 years, that's a big problem. I think that's a pretty safe zone. You shouldn't have any issues within that time frame.
That's so smart too. Like I hope I could get to that point where if you buy a car, rent or lease, right, and you have it for 2 or 3 years and you're buying it new, you'll never have to service that car beyond an oil change. You won't, you know, and you could buy a $30,000 car or a $70,000 car. It applies to everything really across the board that's available in the American market right now. So I would love, you know, I'm a car guy, so I'd love to do that. But it's so smart because there's not going to be any $1,500 repair bills ever.
Yeah, it's kind of it kind of works for everybody in that equation if you have the money to do it. Because God, I went to dinner with them, you know, a couple weeks ago, and his car is just insanely nice. Like just inside, you feel like you're in a spaceship.
I don't even know what he drives now.
It's like an Escalade style car. I don't know exactly the specific thing. By the way, Dave, I did some research for you. The Apple Watch, the Apple Care Plus for Apple Watch is for 2 years $49.99. However, you have to pay. So they'll take care of unlimited incidents of accidental damage protection, each subject to a service fee of $69. So you're already looking like half the cost of the watch at that point. And I think that's the math I did at the time. So I was just like, fuck it.
Yeah,
that's really smart.
I think the most expensive Apple Watch is like $800.
Oh my
so
God.
that would make sense for that one.
I would do that.
But for us buying the cheapest model, that is like that's not worth it. $50 plus $70. No.
I just wanted it to count steps. You know that. You're the one who encouraged me. You're the one who encouraged me to buy it.
Yeah. No, because you wanted, I just wanted you to have that data. You love your little data points, your statistics.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Is that it? Are we good?
Good to go.
All right. I think that, let me see here. Let me consult the email. Dig, I think yours actually kind of makes some sort of chronological sense as we talk about money and sense. I'm feeling very clever. I'm reading Walter Isaacson's Benjamin Franklin biography, which is exceptional. It's exceptional. I'd never read it. I read his seminal Steve Jobs biography, which is an amazing read. So I went and bought this because he was actually on, I don't know if you heard it, Dave, he was on Lex Friedman, or you might have heard it too, Ben. He was on Lex Friedman, and so it was a really fascinating interview.
Oh, I listened to that yesterday. Yeah. Clips.
Yeah. He's
not the whole show.
He's awesome. He's so smart. And so I was like, I got to read the Benjamin Franklin one. And I think he did one on Edison, it was Einstein, which I'd like to read as well. But I'm reading that. I'm feeling very clever because the one thing I'm learning about Benjamin Franklin is he's so fucking smart. He's a little smart for his own good, but he's so clever. You know, like he would, to make himself look more industrious as a printer, he would like move his own papers and like his stuff through the street himself, so to make him look like he could afford help and he had help, but he would just move his stuff around the street himself to make it look like he was like always really busy. And anyway, very interesting.
Well, is the womanizer angle, is that real?
Yeah, what they say about it, I'm only in the 1760s right now, so he's still in England before the revolution as like a diplomat or whatever. But yeah, what they say is that he had very like amorous style flirtatious relationships with many women, but there's no evidence that any of them became really sexual, and that it seemed like he was kind of into the game more than anything else, and that these young women were like crazy about him. And we're talking about him being 60 and them being like 20.
It's so
and them
weird.
Being like absolutely wet in the pants for Benjamin Franklin, you know, and
goodness.
him just being like, you know, writing the most clever shit, wearing the coonskin cap and doing his shit in Europe and speaking all these different languages and being a polymath and flying the kite.
Up, like he's definitely playing up the like most interesting man in the world, intelligent man angle. Because I look at Benny Frank, I'm not thinking hot.
No,
it's not the first thing I'm thinking.
Definitely not. It's super interesting. What I'm learning from this, because I didn't I mean, I studied American history in college, so there's some level of knowledge, but I never really read deeply about Benjamin Franklin. I mean, I know and love him. This is Benjamin Franklin, this is an engraving, and there's a little subchapter on this whole thing about him making it during the French and Indian War. But what I didn't, I guess, really appreciate about him was that he really was the first notable American. Like, he was the first American that was famous around the world. And before the revolution, before anything, and that it was the electricity stuff that made him notoriously, like, he got like honorary doctorates from Cambridge and Oxford and all this crazy stuff that he really was. I know that I just didn't realize how important it was that he kind of flew that thing and realized, like, oh, electricity this is what you think it is. It does do these things. And then they would make these primitive batteries, and he had all these crazy experiments going on and all this stuff. And I had no idea that I knew he was a gentleman scholar and a scientist, but I didn't know that he was actually famously renowned for that in some meaningful global way, more than his diplomacy, because he died right after the revolution. So he wasn't around during the, really right after the Constitutional Convention. I think he dies, right? Well, I'm not there yet. I
don't know. How old was he when he passed?
He was in his 80s. I think he was 83 or something like that. Yeah. Wow. And he was born, it was something like that, because he was born in like 1706 or something like that, so
all that loving.
So yeah, exactly.
All that young loving.
Well, that you watched the John Adams HBO, there's that great scene with him in the bathtub with that woman.
Yes.
And they're playing chess. And I think that was the whole thing. It was supposed to be like flirtatious and weird. And that must be a scene from something that someone recounted as seeing him like that. And he had his coonskin cap on, but he was naked or whatever. And he's just playing chess with this beautiful French woman who's probably 50 years younger than him. It's dope. He's
so awesome. Good. That series was fantastic.
Yeah, we'll do that on Knockback at some point, I think, because and I think Micah would really like it too, because the thing about it is it's
no, it's good. It's good.
It's super watchable. That's why I've told her it's super watchable. It's based on David McCullough, his book, John Adams, which came out probably 25 years ago, a seminal book about John Adams. And it's based on that specific book, and it's just his life and times. And so each episode it's Paul Giamatti plays John Adams, and it's
I'll watch that.
Yeah, and he's amazing.
Bernie Mac wrote it.
He's amazing. I'm pretty sure he won.
So good.
He won awards for this performance, but
oh yeah,
and it's basically him at different periods in his life, and so it goes from the Boston Massacre, I think, is the first episode, so that's 1770 through to him dying, I think 1826. So yeah, we'll do that at some point. But good shit. I don't know how I got on that tangent though. Let's get back to you, Dagan, on your topic today.
Speaking of the forefathers of our country, let's talk about tipping. Makes sense. Goes right along with it. I want to get your thoughts and your stances and your philosophies on this, guys. I don't know. I feel like I was talking about this with Helene the other night. It comes up a lot because, and I wonder, like, are we tipping for everything now? Does everybody have their hand out, or does it just feel that way? Is it the changes that are happening, post COVID? I'm not sure. But I'll tell you why it was on the top of my mind. I was in the supermarket last night, supermarket chain that I frequently shop, 2 locations, same bullshit though. I realized there's some sort of scam going on. Okay. Talk about things that are not on the up and up or things that are predatory. So I'm checking out, and you guys know how the supermarket is. I try to do self-checkout now. I just find it very convenient. Even if I have a lot of stuff, I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good at getting through there, being very efficient. But as supermarkets have now, they have the thing at the end where you could round up your total. So whether it's 3 cents or 97 cents, you could choose to round up, and supposedly the money goes to local soup kitchens, food pantries. Cool. Like, I'm down. Like, I usually do the extra and just round it off. Okay. It's almost like, plus there's this OCD thing of being in the gas station and having that square number, filling it up to 40 exactly. If it goes to 40.01, you're like, oh, fuck. Right. Then you got to go to 45. And if you go over, it's like a whole thing, at least with me. So yeah, no, that's a real thing. I know. I need therapy. But so here's the thing with this supermarket thing. I guess lately I'm in the food store, without exaggerating, I'm food shopping, whether it's little or bigger, 6 out of 7 days a week. It's
what?
On
the way. Yeah, it's on the way to Lilia's dance. She dances every night of the week. So it's just convenient. We have this strategy now, which seems to be working. We're not doing the Blue Apron meal plan thing anymore. We'll food shop for 2 dinners at a time. And I feel like it's going pretty well. I like the rhythm of it because it doesn't get boring. We kind of get a taste for what we want. All right, go cover the next 2 nights. It just seems to be working for us. But I'm in the food store a lot. So the moral of the story is I'm not always doing the rounding up thing. I'm like, it's enough. You know, I food shopped already 4 days. I rounded up 4 days. 5th day, you're on your own. I hit the no. Calls over, light goes on, calls over the attendant. It freezes the whole transaction. I need help. Okay. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I realize next time I'm in, I hit no again. I don't want to round up. I don't want to put any tip. Red light goes on, calls over the attendant, freezes the whole transaction. And so she comes over, waves her little card in front of the screen. I'm like, what's going on here? 3 times this happens. 4th time, I'm like, all right, I'll round up. Put the 23 cents in, whatever. Totally goes through. Transaction's brilliant. Get out of there. Get my receipt. I'm done. I'm like, wait a second. Next time I go in, hit no. Freezes the whole transaction. Has to call the lady over. I'm like, holy shit. I'm not tipping, and they're flagging my transaction because I'm hitting this no button. They're running on people right now. It's fucked up. I'm tipping in the supermarket even when I don't want to. So it gets to the point now where I know it's going to jam up. I'll just say yes and tip just because I don't want to wait for the woman to come over and swipe her card and type in the little thing and let me get out of there. So then I'm just thinking, okay, I'm an old man, right? But I remember a time when tipping applied to like 4 or 5 things. Okay. Dining out, eating out, tipping your waiter or waitress. Fine. Oh,
I always tip when I eat out.
Oh, taxi driver, right? I know that's become Uber and ride sharing, but taxi driver, you go to the city, you pay a taxi, give them a little something extra. Barber or hairdresser, always give a little bit extra, right? $5 for the barber, pay the hairdresser, you paid $90 for the hairdresser, you give them a 20. Okay, fine. Delivery, furniture, heavy duty stuff, appliances, those type of thing. Give it's 2 guys. Here's $20, buy yourself lunch. Fine. This has been going on for a long time, but that was pretty much it. Maybe if FTD came with the floral bouquet, you would pay the delivery guy that delivered the flowers. But for the most part, that was it. Now it's everything, right? It's curbside, online, takeout, coffee. There's the tip jar. The bagel place, Uber, of course, the supermarket that I just described. Here's the whole thing. This is how every kind of point of purchase transaction can be described the same way now. You guys know. It's that Apple Pay screen, right? That screen on the pivot. They turn it right in front of you for you to say no tip, 15% tip, 20% tip, customized tip. And you're doing it, you're shamed into tipping for fucking everything. If you go pick up a pizza, growing up in the 80s, you didn't tip the guy when you picked up the pizza for takeout. Now you're tipping 20%.
But
Dagan,
you are.
You want to.
No, yeah, you are tipping 20%.
No,
I'm certainly not
Maybe you're
tipping 20%.
shamed into it. Here's the thing.
I have no shame.
Here's the whole thing. We're in this culture now where I feel like we're not that far removed from like, what's next? Tipping the dentist. We're going to tip the kids' teachers. We're going to tip the mechanic. What's left? If we're just tipping for everything, are we going to be going into tipping for everything? You know, there's one local pizza place around here, very mediocre, but they do a very classy thing that I don't see anybody else doing. They just hit the no tip button themselves, and that's it. So whether that's the owner or one of the kids that are ringing me up, I guess their philosophy is they just take care of it. You know, they'll pay their people what's right. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to charge you for taking out the meatball sub or the pizza, right? We're going to just do it old school. Curbside, the same thing. I order from a Japanese restaurant around here, very expensive. My son loves it. And right on the online menu, there's a thing for tipping. Who am I tipping? I'm going in to pick up the food and bring it home, right? And I'm the idiot that says, I don't want them to fuck with my food, 20% every time, because I don't want to look like I don't want to be the bad guy. listen, sometimes I would like to do it. I can't always do it.
No,
You know what I mean?
this is a famous example of something that has been coming up on Sacred Symbols recently, which is what I call putting people in situations. Right. And when you're put in a situation, that's putting you in a situation. When you're put in a situation,
100%,
you have to react accordingly, I think, because I think, listen, I have a different opinion on this than I think I used to, knowing our mutual friend, Eric Castro, and a friend of ours, here on the show and others, and good buddy of mine. And he's for people that don't know, a James Beard nominated bar owner and bartender. And he's really educated me a lot on the industry in just different ways. It's fascinating stuff. It's really, really interesting. And one of the things he was saying, he would make the case, and people, this is obviously in his field, a point of great consternation. The reality is that there are a substantial number of people in the hospitality industry that want tips, that don't want to be paid straight up because they are professional waiters, and I've only encountered this, this world a few times. Ramon was kind of like a professional waiter for a while, making a lot, quite a lot of money, more than your average, much more than your average American at an average job. And those guys like the idea of them you can make hundreds of dollars an hour doing jobs.
There's no
like
ceiling.
That. Right. Exactly. Right. As opposed to saying, oh, just pay me $20 an hour. It's like, well, I don't want to make fucking $20 an hour, and his whole argument is you just simply get better service that way. And to his credit, he is right, because overseas, not in Japan's different, but in other places in Europe and elsewhere, the service sucks. And I had multiple examples of, if you just don't care, then there's nothing to work for, which is why I like the tipping. The tipping is about extended interaction, right? You're cutting, like you said, Dake, you're cutting my hair. We're having a rapport, whatever. You're shining my shoes, whatever. I've never done that, but that's another example of something that I think people would tip for or whatever. But it's like, flipping around the screen, being at the supermarket, whatever. That's, to me, I'm like, 0, no tip. Like, sorry, because you're putting me in a situation. You damn well know that this isn't one of those interactions where I'm driving to you, bringing you something, or I'm tending to you in a car and I'm opening the door for you or whatever. This is me simply doing my job. Yeah. That's a different story. So I think that there's a place for just being educated by Eric and kind of experiencing things myself. I think in dining and stuff like that, I have no problem with it at all. I think it's fine. I think you could imagine a situation where what would this stuff cost and what would this look like if we paid our people a certain price? But I think when you get to restaurants of certain quality, that's simply not what is wanted by the people that work there, because they just simply make so much more money than that.
That's a great point.
And the place we used to go to, Scopa, which Ben, you've been to too, in Santa Monica, the service there is exceptional. I've actually been there where I'm a 20% tipper. I dated a girl in college, as I noted, who was a waitress, and she just nailed this into my head because I'm not a mathematical person. I don't understand anything at all. She's like, just move the decimal place over by 1, multiply by 2. Right. And that's like what I've always done ever since then. And if the service is really bad, which is very rare, I'll do less than that. But I've been known to do more than that if the service is exceptional. I've been to places like Scopa where I feel like the waiter, the bartenders, the whole everything going on, the je ne sais quoi of the scenario deserves even more than 20%, and that they've earned it. And absolutely. So I can see things both ways, but the whole culture of, here are the people I tip. When the cleaning ladies come over, which they haven't been here in a while, I'll have them over soon, but I tip them. I tip the weed guy when he delivers the weed, which is nice, I guess. When you say big deliveries or anything like that, which I haven't had in a long time, but when people were delivering like our appliances and all that sort of thing, here's what I love. And this is what you're talking about the peer pressure. And I made sure to make note of this is I understand it. And I don't think this was always the case, but in apps like DoorDash, now the drivers can see if you've tipped them or not. And this is, I think, tipping by peer pressure, but also a way to keep everyone kind of honest. But what I would be more interested in DoorDash-like situations is for them to just get paid a living wage. That's a situation where you'd think tipping would probably work. And I just explained how delivery tipping generally works. But delivery tipping works when you're talking about the local pizza guy coming over, sending their 16-year-old kid out to deliver a pizza and you give them $5, as opposed to this mechanized delivery system that kind of churns people and you don't really know what you're going to get. I think that you probably should just remove tipping from that or make it like kind of complimentary.
It's too easy to stiff delivery people.
Right. But you see the other side of it too, like these Ring doorbell videos going around of people like busting balls for not getting tipped enough or whatever. And it's again, this is a circular, what I would call a situation. And so you got to say no in those situations, in my opinion. You have to put your foot down. You know when you're in a situation where the tip would historically be included and when it wouldn't be. And this entire idea that their whole user interface requires them to do that or whatever, it's like, no tip.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And I just think, like, I know I'm kind of a bit of a purist and we're very nostalgic, but I just think it was fine the way it was. Like, we had it worked out. Tip the bartender, tip the bellboy, right? Who else did I forget? Right? Like, we just had it kind of dialed. Now it's kind of changing. Yes, service, restaurants, bartenders, wait staff. The system's built on that. I mean, I think you do the job and you do if you work in that industry and you do a good job expecting that and you have every right to. And I think you go to a restaurant expecting to do that. Don't go to a restaurant expecting to tip the wait staff, not tip the wait staff or stiff them. That's ugly. You know what I mean? And that just causes this whole reactive thing where now, I remember we were in Lake George with the kids coming back from Montreal and there was a pizza place. And some dude got up in arms with the owner saying, you charged me a 20% gratuity on a party of 3 and never said anything to me. So if I didn't look at my receipt, seems awfully predatory to me. And I understood his perspective because he wasn't a party of 6 or more, which is usually the established thing. And it was a thing where it wasn't posted anywhere. And the lady, made a case for herself. The owner was like, we have this thing where kids come in, they don't tip the waiters and the waitresses, and this is just kind of put in place to protect them, right? But we would never have needed that if we had to. And I worked as a waiter late in college. I saw people walk out without tipping. It's a pretty despicable thing to do. But, you gotta. One hand washes the other. You go to a restaurant expecting to tip. You work in a restaurant expecting to get tipped if you do a decent job. That's just the way, that's what we've come to expect. That's kind of what the rules that we've established. Now this tipping for everything, like at the supermarket, I don't mind. If I go to Giant and I know it's going to the local food pantry, I feel good about that. And it's a little less, it's not person to person. So it's not that type of thing where they're turning the touch screen to me. The clerk is turning the touch screen to me. And I'm saying, I have to say no tip right in front of them. You know what I mean? So it's like this thing of like invoking shame just to get your $5.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. You have to put your shoulder into that, in my opinion, and fight the fight. We're in a phalanx. You understand what I'm saying? Like, seriously, we all have to move forward and be like, well, yeah, no tip. No tip. No, we all know you tip the doorman. You tip the maid at the hotel. You don't tip the person handing you a pizza box when you go in. That's the implied transaction for time immemorial. We've been ordering pizza like that.
I totally understand your outrage and I feel that. But let me ask you this before I hand this over to Micah. Let me ask you this question. We all know we're in this culture, at least in the United States right now. I know we have people listening from all over the place, but in the US, there's this blue collar sort of work deficit where nobody wants to do basic jobs, work at fast food chains, work in the supermarket, work
good
retail.
Thing millions of immigrants are pouring over the border right now, man. Oh my goodness.
We have this crisis.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Yeah. And I wonder if this tip culture is part of that, where it's like to entice people to do these lower paying jobs. Is that a part of what we're seeing here? Like this kind of these desperate measures, basically, by these corporations and by these entire industries and companies saying, like, we have to get them here somewhere if they're going to make $10 an hour. But it is kind of insidious in a way, because it's relying on the consumer to fill in the gaps when the company should just be paying $15 an hour instead of 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree. Or just and if it's the whole threat of mechanization, like, just get it over with already. If you're going to hold this over everyone's head and really think you can run these companies without people, then do it. And then we can move on and find the different jobs. It's like the whole argument about how everyone and the horse stables lost their jobs when the car came around and we figure out solutions. I don't know that we're going to be in another situation like that.
That's scary.
Depends on like what wave of industrial revolution you kind of the academics think you're in right now. But yeah, it's just interesting. I agree. Pay people for requisite for what they do, or, even a little better if you can. I don't know. I think a lot of it is passing the buck. A lot of it is about free and liquid money and people just not caring. And that's why I think it's important to put up the shield wall, as it were, because we all acknowledge. I don't think anyone doesn't understand that it's encroached in the technological era in a way that it didn't before. And so since we all hate it, we can all do something about it pretty easily.
I mean, the conventional tip jar, that was the thing until like 3 years ago. That's even better than turning the touch screen to me and looking at me while I press a button. And you could see, no tips over here. You see, even if you're not looking at the screen, you see what I'm pressing, right? And when you turn it back, it's going to. So, that whole thing of like shaming me into spending more money, again, like I'm happy to do it, but these aren't unlimited coffers. I'm not Donald Trump over here, right? So it's like, where do we, and maybe what Colin's saying too, I think a large part of what Colin's saying, it's not just about that. It's really about not just the money, but the principle, right? And that's what's scary. It's like, where does it end? So Micah, take this into whatever direction you want. You don't even have to talk about this new culture of tipping. You could just talk about, your dining transactions or tipping percentages. What are your customs and whatever you want to say about this.
Yeah, I find this topic frustrating in some ways because it's getting to be a problem. I do want to say, though, in the tip jar era, there was nothing more annoying than when they didn't see you put it in the jar, or like if you weren't putting in coins, they didn't hear it, because it was like one of my favorite places in the world is this hot dog stand back home. And in the summer, it's staffed by high school seniors, and all the tips go towards like a college fund for them. Like they split all the tips at the end of the summer and each kid gets their lump sum, right?
Right.
But like if you're putting in, $3 and like they didn't see it, I know it's not what it's about, but it's like, but I wanted you to know that I did give you $3. I'm not a jerk. Like, like I did do it, but they didn't know. They didn't know. And that bothered me because I'm like, I'm not saying I wanted you to know for the glory. I wanted you to know, like, you did a great job. Here's a tip. And they didn't see it. That was frustrating.
That's another Seinfeld.
Yeah, there's a Seinfeld episode.
But yeah, so one thing, Colin, this happened very recently. We went to the Sugar Ray concert. We went to the merch table to buy t-shirts, which were significantly marked up. No problem, whatever. The guy turns around the iPad for a tip.
Come on.
And it's just
what did I happily do? Say no tip.
Exactly.
Thanks. I'm paying $80 for 2 shirts. Thank you.
Tip for a concert tee?
Yeah.
And the thing too, it's like we went. There was no line at the time that we went. It's not even like he was swamped with customers. We walked right up to the counter. There was no one in line. He handed us 2 shirts. Didn't even give us a bag. Even at our live shows, we give people bags. We did run out in Houston. I felt real bad. Towards the end of the night, we ran out of bags. I wasn't expecting so many people to buy shirts. But they didn't even give us a bag. All right. So it's like, I don't know, man. They
didn't even have one of the shirts I wanted, and the shirts are already significantly marked up. I know firsthand how much those shirts cost to print. So fuck off.
No, exactly. And people will say like, well, that's not the guy making the money off it. No, but for me, tipping is for the people who are making the $2 an hour, the wait staff, and that is just part of the calculation. I think it's a weird thing, but like tipping is for the waiter who's making $2, and you're bringing it up, so now they made their $15 an hour, whatever. That's what it's for me. I will tip in other situations because I know it's just customary, but I hate tipping the hairstylist. I paid $50 for you to cut my hair. If you want $60, charge me $60. But for me to have to know that the custom is that I should tip you an extra $10, like just charge me the fucking price you want, lady. Like, because people are like, well, they pay booth rent and all this stuff. And it's like, I shouldn't have to know the economics of being a hairstylist to figure out how much money to give you. Like, charge me the price you want for this haircut. And that's the price you're going to get. it really is just maddening that I'm supposed to know how much to tip you, especially because my hair is not complicated. All right. I get it cut once a year. I forgot to even do it this year. So like, I'm not one of those fancy ladies. All right. I'm really a man at heart for a lot of this stuff, which is why like I can't stomach the cost of getting nails done and all this bullshit.
You're a man at heart, which is why I love
Micah.
you.
Manny Petty. They tip.
Yeah.
They tip. Is it customary to tip those people or no?
I've only ever gotten my nails done once. I did tip the lady, but it's like that was already $70.
Yeah, it's expensive
for an hour of work, So I'm like, that seemed like a lot already, but I'm gonna give you $10 because I feel like I'm supposed to. Like I asked my sister, I'm like, am I supposed to tip the nail lady? She's like, I do, and it's like, all right, that's the thing. I can't stomach these prices. You know how much charcoal I could buy for $80? All right, you know how much meat I could buy for $80? Those are my hobbies, not this. But anyways, that's besides the point.
Tip the butcher.
Tipping for me, it's for those people that genuinely aren't making the minimum wage. When I go to Starbucks, all right, and I order a drink, first and foremost, I'm not complicated. I'm not the guy who's ordering a 4-shot vanilla latte, 3 pumps of hazelnut, 2 pumps of this. I'm not the guy who's doing that. I'm going to walk up and say, I'd like a tall vanilla latte, please. And that's it. Half the reason I don't tip is because I'm the easiest order of their day, and I know that. But also, Starbucks employees, they're not making $2 like a waitress.
Right.
All right. Like, I know they're not making a lot, but they're at minimum wage. Like, that's kind of my whole thing with it is like, I'm not subsidizing this part of it. When I was in college and I worked minimum wage jobs, and that was kind of the idea. I'm a college kid with not a lot of expenses living at home, and that's why I had this job. If it's your full-time gig, that's kind of a problem that you need to sort out. But it's like, I'm not giving you an extra $2 for this drink that, first of all, I didn't ask for anything extra. I didn't ask for anything special. If I was the guy who was ordering the drink with the really long receipt because I added 20 things to it, yeah. But I'm not that person.
Your adult
like
milkshake.
Does Starbucks have the screen that they turn to you and ask for the tip?
I go to the Target. I go to the Starbucks at Target because there is no option. That's not why I go to that one, but I like it partly because they don't do that to you. Or like there's no thing that pops up for a tip. I do wish they had a tip jar because the guy working there is really nice, and like just very friendly young man. I wouldn't mind giving him an extra $1 every couple visits or something. But if you go to like a Target, Starbucks, they don't even ask. Same with like Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
It's their register. It doesn't come up.
That's interesting.
But like, another one for anyone who gets tattoos, you're supposed to tip the tattoo artist. But you set the price, man. You set your hourly rate. It's, if it's $100 an hour, that should be the price. Why am I supposed to give you an extra 15%? Just set the price you want. Because like that's where like it gets really crazy. It's like you set that price yourself. Like if you're undercutting yourself, like I don't know, man, do better math. Like I'm supposed to tip that guy. You get piercings, you're supposed to tip that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, and
see, that's a thing where if you know you're going to return for another piercing or another tat, like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot by not. No,
exactly. Like right? I always do. Every piercing I've gotten, I tip the person. Every tattoo I've gotten, I tip the person. This is on my mind because after the wedding, I want to get a new tattoo. It's something I've wanted to get for a while, but it gave me anxiety to think of getting a tattoo. What if it got messed up? What if it didn't heal correctly before the wedding? It's going to be in all these photos and everything. No. But so it just was on my mind of like, I always tip them. Like, I don't want anyone yelling at me in the comments. I always tip the tattoo artist. I always tip the hairstylist. But in those situations, it's like, just set the price at what you actually want me to pay you for. Because especially with tattoo artists who are usually like semi-independent, working at a shop, but they set their hourly rate. So just tell me what you want. Like, tell me how much you want and I'll give you that much. But I don't want to feel like I'm supposed to give you an extra 15, 20% and be psychic about it. Like that's a big part of it for me is just, especially with the haircut lady, and the lady was annoying me the whole time. Like the last time I got a haircut, she was bothering me. And so I didn't even want to tip her, but I'm like, but I'm going to come back here next year.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll remember.
What's left?
It gives you, but it does. It gives me so much anxiety, but I can't abide to it like with you, Dagan. If I'm just picking up takeout, this is a whole debate online, but like if I walk into the restaurant and pick up the takeout, I'm not tipping for that. And people will say, well, by getting takeout, you took money from the waitress. It's
whatever,
like,
dude.
By getting takeout, somebody else got that table though, because instead of there being a half-hour wait, somebody else just got into that table and took it. Like,
that's not even a good argument. That's a bad argument.
It's not a good argument, but you should see people are like crazy. If you say you don't tip at Starbucks, they're like, well, Starbucks doesn't pay their employees enough. And it's like, then don't fucking work there.
Yeah, here's the thing though. You tip
it just really is.
But not Dunkin' Donuts. Like,
well, yeah, because
it's so
because
arbitrary.
they know Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, we're a bunch of massholes, all right? Nobody's expecting. And the other thing with Dunkin' Donuts is like, how do I put this? Starbucks is pretty bougie. I don't even like Starbucks that much. We just don't have Dunkin' as readily available around here. But like you go to Starbucks and people pay, $6 or $8 for a single coffee. Part of the expectation to tip is that they're assuming you're a rich person just because you're there. The reality is that I only ever go to Starbucks because, Betty Ann gives me a gift card every Christmas. And so I'm happy to use it, but I cannot stomach those prices. I will not buy Starbucks with my own money. I'll happily use a gift card. But like you go to Dunkin' and a coffee is like $3. I mean, they know who we are. We're showing up in pajama pants and Patriots sweatshirts. All right. You think this guy's going to give you a tip,
There's not much.
Forget about it.
Yeah, no, that's the arbitrary nature of it. And before I pass over to you, Ben, I mean, there's not much left, right? Fast food, we're not tipping. Clothing retail, we don't go in the Gap and, go buy yourself something nice, And the box stores, that's really it. Everything else is like fully, I think tipping is either expected already or it's in the offing, Like how long before I go to Audi, I got to tip the mechanic. My mechanic's making fucking $90 an hour. You know what I mean? And I know guys that tip them. You know what I mean? It's like this guy's making almost $100 an hour working on my car. He's all right. He's doing good. You know what I mean? He's got it sewn up. These cars are going to keep breaking. He's got a great job. He's in demand. It's just, the arbitrary nature of it. And I'm not a cheapskate, and I'm happy to do it a lot of the times. But I think that's the thing is like the nature of feeling like you're forced into it and being ashamed, or at least for me, feeling like ashamed or I didn't do the right thing when I don't, and it's like, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about this, my friend? What do you think, Ben?
Well, first I want to reference a meme I saw recently, which you alluded to, that it was basically like anytime I pay on a tablet, I'm expecting to tip for something I've never tipped for before. And like, I think that's 100% true, that there's just so much. But I've been somebody who has lived off of tips. I've been somebody who has employed people who lived off of tips. And I have also been somebody at certain times who has done both, I have lived off of tips while I was also employing people who lived off tips. So I have a wide array of thoughts. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, tipping is bad. We should abolish that mentality entirely and just pay people more. And other times I'm like, no, we had people who we offered raises to because they were, either exemplary employees or just they had been with us for a while or whatever. And I had one specific bartender in specific who actually declined on multiple occasions because she was like, I don't know if she was worried that we were going to diminish how much of the percentage of tips she got or something. I'm not positive, but she was pulling in, like, on a night where we do $3,000 of business, she was pulling in $1,000 in tips. She's making in tips a third of what we made before expenses total for the whole night. So I think if you are a good, especially, a waiter, waitress, bartender, whatever, you can really make bank on tips because people in general are generous to good service. I know for myself that for the most part, I mean, most people in my personal experience over tip. and when I say over tip, I don't, maybe you did a really great job and they tipped you what they thought it was worth, but the accepted average of 15, 18, 20%, whatever you want to call it, most people still exceed that. Whether it's because they don't want to do math or because they thought you did a really good job, I don't know all the time. But most people do want to be generous when they can. And as somebody who owned a place and was also bartending from time to time, sometimes more than others, people knew that I was the owner. And some people, because of that, would not tip. And other people, because of that, would tip more than they would have tipped a bartender that was just an employee there. So I think it's a really weird situation, like with people. Some people are just jerks and they're not going to tip for something. And I'm not talking about, all the extraneous stuff. I'm talking about the established norms of what we've, as a society, always accepted as tipping behavior. But it is really interesting. And the other thing, Dagan, with both your rounding up thing and just in general, every state establishes their own tipping policies. There's a federal minimum wage, then there's a state minimum wage, of course, and sometimes those are the same. But every state has a different rule set on what tipping means. And I can't speak for every state, but I know Pennsylvania specifically, if an employee is making the minimum wage for non-tipped employees, any tips they get via credit card, specifically. And I guess if you really wanted to be an asshole, cash as well. The employer could ask them to give that to them, but that'd be really rough. But technically, you are not required, if an employee is making, I think it's $7.25 an hour still, is not required to give those tips on credit cards to the employee. Now, I always did, if they're tipping that employee. Now, you're permitted to take, up to a certain percent. So let's say your payment processor takes 2.5% of credit card sales. You can deduct 2.5% from their tips. I think that's fair because you're enabling them to be able to receive that tip at all to some extent. I never did that once again because I felt like, I would probably pay this employee more as it were. So not every employee, but some employees, I would end up paying more. So it's not that 2.5% extra is not that big of a deal. But the thing about about that is that some people know that and they'll ask people, what do you make an hour? Or like, what do they pay you an hour? And then they'll base their tip on that. I think that's kind of scummy because if you want to leave a tip, you should leave a tip.
Yeah, just leave a tip.
But
right.
The other thing is that the thing where like, oh, you round up the 97 cents or whatever to give to some homeless shelter or a food bank or whatever. What they do a lot of times, and I'm not saying every company does this, but I know some bigger companies will actually, they'll deduct their processing fee. They'll deduct like a handling fee, which is basically the person who has to sort all that out. So really you think you're rounding up 97 cents and the food bank actually only got 30 cents. So you'd be better off just going to the food bank and handing them $10 once a month than doing the round up thing. And that's probably not a bad idea anyway. But so I think that tipping, it's interesting because in a lot of cultures, a lot of other countries, there is no tipping. When I was in Italy, I remember not knowing that and trying to tip someone and they were like, we don't do that here, basically. Like you could tell they had that happen before. And they were perfectly, they at least seemed perfectly happy with not getting tips because I asked them some questions because I was in the industry at the time. And I remember, and I asked them some questions and they were like, yeah, we get paid plenty. We don't accept tips. That's an American thing. And I'm sure there's other places that do it as well. So I think it's interesting. I don't know, the exact history of everything. What I do know is that at least in some specific cases, you only have to pay somebody this much if they make tips came about because employers were like, look, the employees are making 3 times as much money as the business is making, and I'm paying them the same as I am the guys in the kitchen, whatever. So, they're making more money. And that's why some of that was instituted, which I think was probably a bad motivation.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had bartenders making almost $100,000 a year working 30 hours a week. And I'm like, I as an owner, I wasn't paying myself anywhere near that much, and sometimes not at all. So I think there are definitely weird situations, and it's a case by case basis. But as for me personally, you asked about like what we each do individually. I'm typically a 20%er guy, and that is like Colin said because of the math. It's easy, but I don't like the places that want you to tip ahead of time. You know, when I get delivery, I don't want to tip ahead of time. I'll select no tip and then pay them in cash when they get there. If I actually want to talk to somebody face to face. And because like there have been instances where, you know, you order a pizza and you get the pizza and it's smashed against the box.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't the delivery driver, but when I delivered pizza, I would check the order before I took it to somebody. And so, you know, I don't like that whole paying up front a tip. A tip is supposed to be a reward for good service, not an expected contribution because they're working in general. So
yeah, I love that.
I'm very much and I also like cash tips because then it's up to them to decide if they want to tell the government, you know, hey, yeah, you're, you know, give Caesar what Caesar's, whatever. But hey, if they don't want to tell the government, it's not my business what they do with that money.
Absolutely.
If it's cash. So I'm very much you know, I'll tip for some things. If it's, you know, I go to a baseball game or something, I might get a beer. I might throw $1 on there for a tip on the card or whatever, because it's easier. But oftentimes I like using the tip jar. I am very conscious about making sure they see it. Or I'll slide it across the counter, pretending like I didn't see the tip jar. I'm like, hey, here you go. They're like, oh, you just throw the tip jar. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't see that, you know. But like, I want them to know that they got a tip. Not just that there's 30,000 people there. Not
so you don't get caught taking it out of the jar to put it back in the jar.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. I love what you bring up too, Ben, about front of the house versus back of the house. I had very limited experience waiting tables in college, but that was always a great conflict between, you know, the prosperous waitstaff and the line cooks sweating in the back, wondering why they weren't making that.
Yeah.
And then that sort of contentious relationship between the two is always so, I mean, it's sad. And I often sided with the, you know, the back of the house, the kitchen, but yeah, man, you know, you kind of understood their argument. These guys are back here killing themselves. They're not tipped, but these people are, the forward-facing people are tipped. It is weird when you think about all the rules.
Yeah.
And the sort of the origins and the history of why it's like that.
We never had a hard time really getting employees specifically for wait staff, because we had a policy where a lot of places will make their employees, one, they make people split tips, which I think in some places is illegal. Like they're not not allowed to require them to split tips, which I'm a fan of, not splitting tips, because if I tip this person for a good job, I don't want it to go into
it used to drive Ramon insane.
Yeah.
If there's a weak link,
like
right, and they're entitled to the same thing, that's a problem. And
then some people, again, I don't know if you're allowed to require, but some places do require that their wait staff split tips with their, or give, you know, pay out, I think is what most people call it, the kitchen staff or the bus staff or whatever.
Yeah.
And we would always say, we don't do that. We pay them, you know, 10, 15 times more than what you're getting paid per hour. If somebody really helps you out and you knew you weren't going to get a good tip from that table unless you had some help to get that food out there on time, yeah, maybe you could throw them a few bucks, but we're not going to require it. And you know what? Sometimes that you never want as an owner for that to be for this to be the case, but sometimes that backfires. If, you know, Susie is known to always tip out the bus staff, but Jimmy is not, then they're probably going to put Jimmy's order behind Susie's order, whatever. And, you know, it's just a matter of, like, I kind of feel like tipping is very much a what goes around comes around.
Sure.
Because I don't really believe in karma necessarily, but I do think that it's in our nature as humans to want to help people who help us. So if you're somebody who throws the kitchen staff a few extra dollars, you're probably going to reap that back in some way, shape, or form. But I'm not a fan of requiring split tips for employees. I'm not a fan of forced payouts, because I know there are some bums who get tipped out that didn't do anything to help those people. So I'm very much a merit-based tipper. You know, usually my expectation is 20%, but if you disappoint me, I'm not going to say that's not going to be impacted on the tips as well. So
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. You know what's interesting, Ben? We go to one restaurant. We go only a few times a year. It's very expensive. It's like our special occasion place. Delicious foods, tapas. The chef is a genius. We always enjoy it. It's like literally our favorite spot over the last 2 decades. But I was very surprised to hear that their wait staff initially hearing that they pulled their tips. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird philosophy for a restaurant like this. But then I kind of understood it from one perspective of, you think about that weak link philosophy, but they can't have a weak link there. So it kind of, the way they do it, one way of looking at it is it kind of ensures consistency across the board. Like they won't allow a weak waiter or waitress to work there because it's very expensive and they know it's about the experience and they just wouldn't allow it. So it ensures a consistent sort of experience every time you go. And, we go for Valentine's Day, one of our birthdays, our anniversary, only a few things over the course of the year. So there's months that go by between going, and it's always consistent atmosphere, the quality of the food and the quality of the service, because they have that thing where it's like only the best. And so pooling tips in that scenario makes sense, but I guess that's a very special sort of model that wouldn't apply everywhere. To a middle of the road restaurant, let's say, probably wouldn't make that much sense. Higher end place. So I kind of understood. And, I'm fascinated because I don't know that much about the restaurant business and the service industry, but I thought that was interesting because you don't see that a lot. Everybody's usually on their own, every man for himself type of thing.
Yeah. And I really do think I know some places too will separate out like their bartender doesn't split tips with the waiters or waitresses because the bartender is, oftentimes if you sit at the bar, it's probably, not always, but probably because you're interested in having a little bit more conversation, maybe with the other patrons beside you, maybe with the bartender, and whether or not the bartender wants it, if you want to talk, they got to be able to respond back. So the bartender, especially if there's only one, is usually going to be doing more work, I guess, in the sense of the relational stuff where they're talking to everyone, they're checking on everyone, everyone's facing them and looking at them the whole time. Whereas if you're a waiter or waitress, you're able to escape back into the back room. You're able to go and hide for a minute and not. So like, I don't like that either because then, not to say that the waiters and waitresses aren't doing a great job or even better job than the bartender, but it's a different job.
Yeah,
I think. And then the other thing you mentioned just real quickly about somebody mentioned, if you go with a party of 6 or 8 or whatever, charging that fee. I don't like that from a consumer or a business standpoint or someone who gets tips, because I feel like, and I know this was true for myself even, when I know there's a guaranteed tip of a minimum amount, I'm probably not going to hustle as hard. I'm probably not going to work. That table's probably going to be, gets left aside a little bit. And that's not a good mentality to have, but I think that's just nature. When you're getting a guaranteed amount, you might not work as hard as if you have to hustle for it.
I'm not going to check in. I'm not going to give a drink refill. I'm already getting this thing. What was weird about that specific pizzeria in Lake George? And the thing that bothered me the most was the customer had a point. It wasn't the policy wasn't posted anywhere on the wall, on the menu. It was just like this thing. That was just like when the check came, that's when you found out.
Yeah, that's a problem because I was going to say we go to a place here called the Boathouse that has a mandatory gratuity for anything, like for anyone, one person or 10 people or whatever, which I'm totally fine with because they have the more mechanized runner system, where you kind of have a waiter, but you really don't. And they just kind of whoever can help you helps you. And I don't mind that at all. It's nice food, but it's still kind of casual. But as I understand it, and I think that one of our sisters told me this when we went there, is that when you go in there now, they explicitly say to you, like almost like you're getting your rights read to you, where you have to acknowledge that you understand your rights, where they're like, please understand, do you understand that we put a 20% gratuity on all of our bills or whatever? And they did that to me the last time that I was there, and you were there. You would notice that, Micah, and we talked about that.
Right, because they'd say it like, if they kind of ask you, have you eaten here before? If you said no, they'd be like, just so you know, there's a 20% gratuity. And then like they used to stop saying it because they recognized us. But now it's like, we are regulars there. They know us, but they still say it every time now.
And apparently they got in trouble. Like they got sued.
You got to be upfront with stuff like that. If it's transparent and you're agreeing to eat there, then everybody's happy. Right. Yeah, that was really weird. I understand Lake George. You got a lot of, blue collar people coming through there. Maybe people with the propensity, young people too, right? The propensity to just stiff people and not even think about it. You got burnt a bunch of times, but still, man, you can't just do that to every family that walks in. You know what I mean? You can't, it's just not a very nice policy to adopt. You know, it makes you, I wouldn't go back there. You know, I thought it was kind of a weird look, but yeah, man, I don't, you know, where are we heading? I don't know. I think a lot of it is like just trying to drum up people to get to work these jobs. I think a lot of it's just kind of scrambling to like, how can we entice people to work here, make it a little more lucrative? It's kind of sad if you think about it from that perspective. You know, nobody wants to, that's why I never really worry, because I will go and do those jobs if I need to. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't care. I'm not too proud. I'm going to put food on the table for my family. If I can't animate, and listen, tip your animators. It's not a thing. Maybe we'll make it a thing. I don't know, but I'm not, that's why I don't worry. I'll go do these jobs. I'm not too proud, but we are in this sort of mode where even young people don't want to do these jobs. I don't know what's going on.
Well, where do we stand? Are we satisfied with this topic?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Thanks for weighing in.
Yeah, no problem. All right, let's end here with my topic. We can be brief. I think Micah and I will sit back. So for people that don't know, we're getting married, Micah and I, on the 28th of October, and it's close now. But at the time we're recording, it's 22 days away from when this goes live. I have no idea. It'll be like in the teens somewhere. But so we're going to be married soon, and we're with two married people. And I had this topic on my small list of topics that I've been thinking about for when we had a couple of married people, or if it was going to be me with Dagan, Ben, and Dustin specifically. But since it's the two of us, I thought it would be good to kind of sit back and listen. I was just seeking some, peripheral advice for marriage. What do you guys think? What makes a successful marriage? What do we need to know going in? That is very, very open-ended. I mean, what comes to mind for you when I say this? So Ben, let's go to you first. We're getting married, not me and you, me and Micah.
No, yeah, you guys are getting married.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get, well, it's the United States, it's 2023. A lot of things go now. But what would you say to us? What kind of advice would you instill in us that you've learned as a married man?
Well, first, I want to say that there is no possible way this was going to happen, but it did. And that all of these sections kind of intersect because I was online shopping. And so I'm getting you guys a gift that's on your register or whatever, but I also was getting something else made for you. And
thank you.
On the website I ordered it from, which was not like a, so I got online shopping, I've got your wedding, and I've also got on the website, which was not like an Amazon or something, it was a custom website. There was an option to tip. So it's impossible, but it happened that all of the things are connected that we talked about.
My mind's
today.
Blown right
I
now.
did not tip, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I just real quick, I forgot to even mention that I order a lot of like art, like from like Etsy type sellers, but off of Etsy. A lot of them have their own websites, and it's like, here's a $30 pair of earrings. Would you like to add a tip?
Right. Yeah.
And it's just
so
like,
weird.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
But go on.
It's tough for me to give advice because I think every relationship is a little bit different, obviously. And I think that what works for some people doesn't work for other people. And I think that everybody comes into things with different amounts of baggage and different amounts of backgrounds and, all sorts of different things. But I think that one of the best pieces of advice, and I might have even mentioned it before on this show, sometime when I was on, I think I heard it from Justin McElroy back 10 years ago or so on a podcast where, and I might have got the wording wrong, but he basically was like, people look at a marriage as each person needs to, to do half to like, you gotta bring your half to the table. And he basically said, I can't remember if he said bring 51% or bring 100%, but basically don't ever aim to bring half. Like always put your full effort into it. Because if you're both putting your full effort into it, even though at different points, one of you is not going to be putting your full, like there is going to come a point when one of you is just not trying and the other one has to take up the slack. But if you're always aiming to bring more than your half of the relationship and make things work, even if the other person isn't, whether that's in good times or bad times, then, things will be more likely to work out. Things are going to, and I'm not just, again, not just talking about in troubled times, I'm talking about in good times too. If you're always aiming to go above and beyond and to please the other person and to carry not only your weight but their weight, then it's just going to make the burden lighter for each of you. And I think that's important because obviously none of us are capable of being perfect all the time. I mean, I get it, like 90%, but most of the time we're going to fall in certain areas and everything. And I think that understanding that you're bringing as much as you possibly can to the table, while also having the understanding that just like you're going to fail, the other person's going to fail, that inevitably that's, that'll work out. Because if you have understanding and you also have dedication to the relationship, to each other specifically, that works out. And obviously there's caveats there too, but I think that that's important. And I think that that's good, not just for marriage, so specifically for you guys, but also for people who are listening who aren't in that situation where they're getting married, or maybe they don't plan to ever get married. In any of your relationships, I think it's important to be the one who tries to, you're always putting your best foot forward. And I think the other thing is just like, sometimes you're going to hate each other. Like, not really probably, but like sometimes you're just going to be sick of each other. And I think that just choosing to love, I've always felt like there's two loves. There's the choose to love, and because you have to, because you're supposed to, because they're your spouse. And there's the want to love, the butterflies, the emotions. And I think you should always have both of those. But, Dagan's got a little more time in than me, but being almost 12 years in, I can tell you that, like, yeah, there's plenty of times where there's still the fluttery butterfly love, whatever. But like most of the time in the next, however long you guys are alive and hopefully married until one of you dies, there's going to be plenty of times where there's not the butterfly love. There's the obligation love. And I don't think that love from an obligatory standpoint is a bad thing. I think that's a noble thing. I think it's a good thing to know that you are supposed to love each other, because you have chosen to enter into a relationship where you choose each other and you've chosen to love each other. So those are both very simple, rudimentary things, I think. But I think that as I've tried to take them to heart over the years and, watch other people who are older and more experienced than me and had plenty of failings on my own, that just, giving more than I expect of the other person, and also choosing to love them even when I don't have those fireworks in the sky and butterflies in my stomach. I think those two things make for a very happy life, for sure, for me.
Yeah, that's good. Good advice. I think poignant advice. It's funny about, you had just mentioned in passing people that choose not to get married or whatever. What's funny and unique about this situation, and I was going to try to tell the story or put it in my vows or something, but it's just really no way to do it eloquently without talking about previous relationships, obviously. But I've expressed this to Micah since, is that when I was with and dated other women in my past, I think we sometimes would talk about the future with a couple of different women, but I never really felt like it was going to happen, or we were just wish casting or projecting a future that wasn't, or yet to be determined. And I never really thought, I guess what I was going to say was that I would ever really get married. It just never seemed like something I ever actually, even when I went and looked at engagement rings with one of my exes and all these other things, still in my mind, I never really buckled under this thing of like, we're getting married. And I didn't really want to get married. And I know that that's how it was kind of not right, and how unique that situation is now that I've gotten older and a little wiser or whatever. But I've also accepted that, no, I am going to get married. I want to get married. That the reason that it didn't feel right, or that thank God I didn't do those things at that time, was because it wasn't. And so I'm very interested in that change, because I really believed that about myself, that I was like, not that I'd be like a Bill Maher style bachelor or something, but that I just wasn't going to get married. I don't know. Dag, what? So good advice, Ben. Thank you for that. Dag, what do you have to say? What's your advice for us?
I mean, I'm so excited for you guys. We're so close. We're right there. I mean, this is your last days as single people. Mm-hmm. Very exciting. Very heady stuff. I love what Ben said. I'll go one step further. One thing, very important. Concubine. His and hers. Mistress. Umar for you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Pool boy for Micah. Yeah. Little piece on the side.
Yeah.
You haven't seen our pool guy, though. It's not really a fair deal to me. All right. Because the cleaning lady is far better than the pool guy.
So maybe you swap. Kyle, you into the pool guy? Wait, have fun with it.
Maybe. I mean, we'll have fun with it. I mean, it's got to be a little different, Do whatever you want.
Listen, I would boil it down. I love everything Ben said. I would boil it down to one thing. I thought about this at length, and it really comes down to the one thing I think is so important, and I feel it like every day. Been married for 21 years, been together close to 30, all told. And I think it's laughter, man. Like if you can laugh together, like Helene and I still do, and it can't be any realer. Been together this long, 2 kids, both teenagers now, owned homes together, careers, the whole juggling act. I mean, it's as real as it's ever going to get. The honeymoon's long over, right? And I think that finding the humor and having fun together and that laughter is just the glue. Like when we're laughing together in the kitchen, something silly happens. Could be on a hard day, could be on an easy breezy day, could be during, tougher times, challenging times, great times. It doesn't matter. Like the day I can't make Helene laugh, and again, even on like the worst days, that's the day I'll start worrying. And the same for her. And listen, sometimes we're having a great time laughing with each other, and sometimes we're laughing at each other. It doesn't matter. Teasing each other, joking around. That's often the case with us. But having that levity and having that humor and just I think that's just like a stark reminder of why we love each other so much. And the sense of humor at the core of things, and not to paint this artificial picture of the way it always is. Things can be tough. There's days that go by that are all business, shuttling the kids around, long day at work. What are we doing for dinner? I don't know. Grab a shitty pizza. We don't have time to cook. The dog's sick, whatever it is. Like one of the kids are sick. One of us are sick. Something's broken on the house. That's often the case. It doesn't matter. Like at the core of that, you find like that common ground. And I think a lot of it for Helene and I, and why we love each other, beyond the physical stuff, beyond the physical attraction, beyond, anything intellectual even, there's just like that common sense of humor. And just, I think when we're laughing together, even on days that are just so shitty, it's just a good feeling, and nothing that day might have invoked laughter up to that point. Again, it could get super real sometimes, it's not a movie. It's not a rom-com, but that's the thing. That's the thing it always comes down to for me. I mean, I love the sound of my family laughing in general. For me, that's like the ultimate sign of like, everybody's content. Everything is well in the world. Might not have $1 million, might be worried about this or that, the basic anxieties of life, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It all boils down to that one thing for me. And I think if I was going to say anything else, I think patience is really important. I think I have a very patient wife who's very patient with me. So patience really came in more for me when I became a parent. Like that's when I really learned patience, when I became a parent, but just patience in general and looking at things outside your own perspective. I think marriage teaches that. And just, I do this thing with self-reflection and trying to take stock. Like I try to zoom out and just look at the big picture from a marriage perspective, and just, I'll come up with answers like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Helene and I haven't really had any romance. We haven't even sat down and watched a 2-hour movie together in 3 months. Or I haven't bought Helene flowers in a long time. Like just trying to zoom out and just kind of, just look at the big picture and see, how can I be better? I haven't asked about her day all month. You know what I mean? When she comes home, I'm going to say, be a good listener. I think that practice, if you're both doing that, Helene will just send me a really sweet text in the morning. Helene's over me 90% of the time. The fact that she still does that is pretty crazy. So if you could just do that, that type of thing where you kind of try to, I don't know, be preemptive with the other person's needs, or what am I doing wrong? Where is there a deficit? Right. And how can I just kind of rise to the occasion where I haven't done that in a while? Let me take the kids out, give her a day to herself, that type of thing. Just every so often, just being introspective and saying how can I be better? I do that with being a dad too. I try to do that in my profession as well. But I think I tell that, Helene and I come up with that a lot. And that's at the core of things. We're the foundation of all of this, the things we own, being parents, our careers, like we're at the bottom. We're the bedrock of everything else. There is nothing else without me and Helene, not in the way that it currently exists. So you got to kind of take care of number one. And it's not just about taking care of yourself. It's about taking care of that, that unit as a married couple. And yeah, man, I mean, that's the thing. Like the day that laughter dies, man, like I know I'm getting served the papers, so, and who knows, that could be imminent. If it ended tomorrow, we had a great run, man. I could be really proud, but that would be my advice. If you could just, for us, that seems to be the bonding agent, just that laughter and just being able to laugh even when shit's just going south. I think that's a great lesson for me in general, because I haven't always been the greatest with dealing with adversity, and Helene has taught me a lot about that, but yeah, that's it, man. If you're laughing and you're smiling and you're having fun, and you could find that even in the toughest weeks ahead,
I don't think we'll have any problem with that.
You guys will be, you'll be gold.
We laugh. Micah makes me like belly laugh, which is funny. We're very two peas in a pod, which is nice, because I've said it, and it's somewhat obvious, I suppose, although I play more of the straight man on our shows, I guess, but I don't take almost anything seriously. And I can't stop making fun of or lampooning or whatever, using stupid voices and speaking half the time in my dog voice that I speak to the dogs with, like I'm having full conversations with them. And yeah, I don't know. We laugh. I definitely don't take anything too seriously. And I do try to be mindful of, there's a lot of things I can do better or whatever, but I do try to be mindful of being consistent. Like, I feel all sorts of different ways all the time, but I try to just present a very solid and friendly demeanor to Micah at all times, which I think sets just a good cadence, because sometimes I feel like I'm going to fucking die. And sometimes I feel like, and it's like really not the other person's problem. Like it's good that that person can rely on me or whatever to kind of just ask how the day was and how are you doing, and just like just probing questions to try to get things out. And I think sometimes it annoys her because I ask the same question again, like, an hour later, and she's like, she doesn't understand. I'm just trying to start a conversation with her, just like be open, and I haven't seen her all day or whatever. So I'm already trying to be mindful of those things, and I imagine that they'll get further from mind as I get older or whatever, and we were together more longer, or we get more comfortable. But I do try to present that, like, that's an important thing to me, is that to present consistency, because it was a lack of consistency in my own life in many different ways, in relationships, but growing up or whatever, that was like the worst. Not knowing which version of a person you're going to get, or like what situation that has nothing to do with you is going to like ruin your day, and like what those kind of, like, I just don't want to do that to someone else. And
that's why I don't know why people worry about marriage, because you guys have already been together for a couple of years. You're going to continue to develop that shorthand. You know what I mean? It's only going to get better in that regard. That's why, I think the advent of marriage, or just the whole thing of, now it's official, that really makes people nervous sometimes. And I don't understand why. You're just solidifying it, and you're just carrying everything further. So you're going to get to know each other even better. You're going to develop that shorthand. You're going to, you're going to be able to talk in fractured sentences and know exactly what each other's needs are wordlessly sometimes. And, that familiarity will grow. And that's why I think it gets better. It gets more comfortable. It gets better for everybody. And just what you said too, Kyle, it's very, there's a lot of wisdom in that, of just being considerate. You know what I mean? That there's two people now, and we all think about ourselves, right? And it's not even just being a parent, which I think teaches you this as well. It's just that it's a unit. There's two. You got to think sometimes from the other person's perspective, their needs and all that kind of stuff. I think if you could do that, you could get through almost anything. I really do. Like, if you're genuinely not even good at it, if you genuinely make an effort at that, then I can't see it. I can't see a marriage being bad.
What do you think, Mike? Do you have any closing thoughts on this topic, and just listening?
Oh, no, all very good advice, and I'm just so excited. But when we talk about humor, especially, Colin and I have so many stupid little jokes. And there are ones that I want to put into our vows, but I can't because there's too much backstory. For example, we love Sunday Night Football, of course. Carrie Underwood sings the Sunday Night Football song. I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. We have turned that into several other songs, my favorite being Hot Dog Night. I was like, we get really excited when we're having hot dogs, which isn't a lot.
Tonight's
but
hot dog
we
night?
get really excited for it. Tonight is hot dog night. Yeah. So
for hot dog night.
I wanted to put that in the vows though, but I realized how horrible that sounds, like a wedding night being called hot dog night. But it's like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual hot dogs, but I can't. I'd have to give so much backstory so that my family doesn't think I'm being like excited to fuck later. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about hot dogs.
Like legit, we're talking about hot dogs.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was just like, we just have so many stupid jokes, our songs that we constantly sing to the dogs. Because in addition to Hot Dog Night, there's Hot Dog City. Yeah. That's its whole other song. You know, we kind of alternate between them.
Yeah, that's to the tune of Paradise City, I think.
Yeah, take me down to the Hot Dog City. Is that the same song? It's like Hot Dog City. Is that the same song?
No, that's another one we done too. Hot Dog City.
I will say, Micah, on your fear that people wouldn't understand and stuff. Like, I think that's a valid complaint or fear. But as you get really close to the wedding, and I've before I had my own wedding, I was in many and DJ'd many and helped plan many, too many. I hate that. But I would say that just like keep in mind that, yeah, your friends are coming, your family's coming, you want everybody to enjoy it. But like, if the day's about you guys, if putting a hot dog night in your vows makes your day more special, then do it. Who cares?
Certainly it'll make your night more special for sure.
That's right.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I'm excited to have sex for the first time. That's going to be real cool, I hear. Mm-hmm. That could be exciting.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, marriage, it's this is an exciting time. My parents are really excited. This is something I kind of didn't even think of, that I'm their youngest kid. And Colin also being the youngest. And it's like, this is the last of the kids to get married. Now, my sister's engaged. She was married once before. But so for them, I didn't think of it. Like, my dad said something like, oh, we've been waiting our whole lives for you to get married. And it's like, oh, because in my head, of course, I had the clock's ticking thing. I feel like I'm getting old. Like, you feel like you're never going to meet anybody type thing. But I didn't realize that my parents, not that they didn't mean it like that, but I didn't realize that they also feel better knowing that I'm going to be tucked away and safe and I got it all figured out type thing. Because I'm obviously not a parent, but like, it'd be nice if Rush got married, for example, and I didn't have to worry about him anymore. Mm-hmm. But that was just another facet of it. And realizing for Colin's parents too, of like, they're going to watch their last child get married and, just feel like, yes, all our children are set. We've done our job. Everything's okay. That was just a very sweet moment that I kind of had with my dad of, I didn't realize they thought of it that way. Which is part of why, something we've talked about when we do like our first dance, we also want to have like our siblings and their spouses come in partway through that so that our parents can just kind of see like, look, all your kids are married. Like, we did it. All the kids are all set. We're fine, and I just thought it'd be like a sweet moment type thing of like, that's look at us all. We're all set.
Our wedding song is Hydroponic by 311. Yeah, that's going to be fun. It's going to be a good day. I mean, it's coming. I was talking to Dad yesterday because we're doing we don't really have anything to rehearse, but we're doing a rehearsal dinner, and mostly with his side of the family, actually, because they were going to do a dinner anyway. Yeah. And it was funny because we were with the Blakes, our Uncle Mike and that side, and they're like, we're fine not doing anything the night before. Like, they don't want to do anything anyway. So they was like, all right, fine. So we're just going to have a little gathering of folk, and I'm looking forward to that. And I was talking to Dad, and he was asking how I feel. And I was like, honestly, until October, because we got engaged last July. And then Allie got engaged after us and then got married before us. She preempted us.
Oh, right.
So that happened or whatever. And then, so it seemed important to Dad to do like some sort of gathering and whatever. And we really appreciate that. But he had asked me and inquired how are you feeling? And I was saying beforehand, I just really wanted to get here and get over with, because as I've said a million times now, I don't like things lingering. But as we're in October now, the month of it, I'm actually like looking forward to it in a more present way, now that it's here, as opposed to something that either for a long time, honestly, it was like, I'm not thinking about that at all. And indeed, it was basically like a year of me being like, I'm not thinking about that until
I don't have to think about that.
No, I'm not just not. And Micah, to her credit, I mean, she's been doing all of this work or whatever. And we're paying for it ourselves, so we don't have to. we're not really including parents and getting any feedback. We're just kind of doing whatever we want, and that's cool. And Mike has done a really great job with that. But I have personally been, checked out, and because first of all, I'm running the business. I'm I'm paying for this, and I feel like so we have someone planning it for us, and that's Micah. Appreciate that. But she's done a really great job with the flowers, the bakery, the photographer, all the things, the DJ, all the things we had to cover. And then the year turned over. And so I was like, all right, now we're in July, and now we're, in August and September, and now we're here. So it's frustrating we had to wait so long, and we really did wait so long just because we wanted this venue at a certain time. And that was what we ended up getting. But it's exciting. And yeah, it'll be a good gathering. I think, what is the final count with us? It's 99, right? So it's 97 plus us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So good, decent
size.
size.
It's way more than we expected. When we were planning this wedding, just all of our family, is long distance. So when I was planning this, we had a large list of people to invite, but I was thinking we'll hopefully get 75 people. That was really what I was expecting in terms of who I thought would be able to travel. A lot of my like my cousins have very young children type thing that I'm just like, I don't know who's going to be able to come. And we are just overwhelmed by the number of people that are making time for it, that do want to come out and celebrate with us. And I remember actually emailing the venue lady. I don't know why I was worried about it, but I was like, we're going to have more people than I originally thought. And she's like, that's great. And it's like, of course they want us to have more people. But in my head, I was like, but I only told you there'd be 75. We're having like way more than that. But it's overwhelming in a good way. Yesterday I started putting together some of the centerpieces. And that's what's making it feel more real of like, I got, I'm getting these things in the mail. I need to assemble like the wedding favors, for example, like something I did with the invitations I sent out. I ran out of recipe cards, but for the first batch of invitations, I sent out recipe cards, because I just wanted to put together like a cookbook of recipes from our friends and family. And so part of the wedding favor is that you'll get one of my recipes. But so I started printing those out the other day. And it's just these things are making it feel more and more real, and just realizing like, oh, man, we really have been waiting since last July when we got engaged, started shopping for venues, booked this place, and it's finally here. It's just, I don't know. I'm too excited to put it into words.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys indulging me as we seek more advice and more counsel as we get to the day where I will consummate the marriage with my bridegroom. That's the right. No, am I the bridegroom? You're the bride.
I think
you're the bride.
Yeah, because somebody.
I'm the bride.
Yeah, because actually remember. Yeah, on Price is Right, Bob Barker called somebody a bridegroom,
right?
And it was just like such a sign of the times, because it was one of the really old episodes. He's like, the bridegroom, and it was like, I can't believe he said that. It's just such an old timey.
Yeah, the mic's awesome. Yeah.
Prima nocta.
It's funny, man. We watch so much of it now that they have that one mini game they do with he golf, like you have to putt, and he always has to putt himself first. So he has the guy hold the mic for him and put it up to his face while he's putting. So it's a classic. Anyway, that was it. That was a good episode of Constellation. Thank you, my friends. Let's go around the horn, say goodbye to everyone. Ben, goodbye to you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My oldest son turns 10 tomorrow, and then like 6 more days, the other one turns 8. So we're having a party this weekend, some family coming in. So
the
busy this
15th?
weekend with that.
October 15th?
No, not your birthday.
My birthday's the 14th.
14th.
Yeah, my youngest is the 13th.
Okay, 13th, and then
yours is the next day. That's how I remembered it. The one time I remembered it.
Cool. I remember things like that too. Like I remember our brother-in-law Derek's birthday because it is the opposite day of Christmas. It's June 25th. It's the furthest day possible from Christmas. So I'll never forget that. So yeah, good remembering tool. Micah, thank you for being here with us today.
No, this was a really fun episode. Thanks, guys, for the marriage advice. And I have indeed been waiting all day for hot dog night. Very excited about that later. We're going to get down with some beans, some dogs, some buns. It's going to be off the chain. Yeah, make some fries.
Yeah.
Are you grilling them, Micah?
No, see, I love to grill, but I can't lighten up the charcoal grill for hot dogs is madness. Like I do love to grill.
You're not gonna boil them though, are you?
No. In the pan. I have a grill pan,
Yeah.
No, I can boil them in milk if you want some milk dogs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, hollow out a hole in the hot dog, use it as a straw for milk. That's an idea. It's like those cereal straws that they used to sell.
I remember those.
Hot dog straws. Buy them now at Costco.
All right, that's enough. Dagan, goodbye.
I mean, listen, I just want to circle back to a really important topic. Marriage is kind of important, but let's bookend it with frosted mini wheats. I know this was a while ago. Follow me. Why can't you just frost it all the way around?
That's too much. That's way too much. It's like a Pop-Tart. Sometimes they have too much frosting on the Pop-Tart. It's too much. Like the brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts, you got to buy unfrosted because the frosted one's too sweet. Because
it's just like, all right. I was going to say Nabisco, Quaker. Who makes those? Call me up. But maybe you got a point. I'll think on that.
All right, my friends. Well, Dag, thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Oh, loved it.
See you next time. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of all things Constellation, Last Stand Media, etc. Couldn't do without you. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access, etc. LastStandMedia.store for merch. We'll see you next time for more. Until then, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.